Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for January 13th, 2018. Tim Elder here with Ted O'Grady and for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Moon. Let's go right to the weather, shall we?
Morning, Tim.
Yes, good morning. If you're a frog, it's wonderful weather.
Right, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe, actually, it's still too cold for frogs, so I guess not. It's too cold.
It's a bit wet out there this morning.
It's a bit wet out there this morning, yes. Who would enjoy this weather? I'm not sure. It's wet for frogs, but it's too cold for them, so I'm not really sure who would enjoy this weather. It's 40 degrees and raining in the Cheongguk area, and the temperature is continuing to fall, and it will get 36 degrees, and by dawn we may start having some snow, slush, snow, so forth. As you can see in the radar, there's all sorts of colors here. To the west of us, we have the blue, that's the snow, and to the east of us, we have the green, and then the yellow and the red, that's the rain that's there. And we're sort of in the middle of that right now, and it's going to be going on like that through today. And the temperature will continue to fall, although the snow's not going to amount to much, just a very fraction of an inch. And I don't even know if it's going to accumulate since the ground has been it's wet. Of course, it's going to, all that rain now is going to freeze.
Yeah, got to be careful driving back.
Got to be careful driving back, yes. You have an uphill. I have a fairly flat course, I'm very glad of that, but you have an uphill course, don't you? Then tonight it's going to continue to get cold. It's going to go down to 6 degrees tonight. And then after we say a daytime high of 30, it says, but actually the temperature is going to continue to fall during the day. So the term daytime high doesn't really apply today. Tomorrow we're going to have predict a high of 22 degrees, and then tomorrow night going down to 4 degrees. Some fairly cold temperature coming all of a sudden after we got up to into the about 60 degrees yesterday. So it was a huge a difference in temperatures. Monday again a 24 high, and then Tuesday high of 32, and some possibility of snow. Wednesday 27. So we're back into winter after that very, very short. I don't know if that was spring or fall.
I know, it's a nice interlude though.
Yes, it was a nice interlude. Yes, but
very deceptive.
We're back to reality. That's for sure. Back to reality of Northeast Pennsylvania. All right, let's go to our Rimas for today. In the Bible, I'm in the Old Testament in Psalm 79. This is a psalm of Asaph, and there are various interpretations of what that means. But anyway, that's what it's called. 79, O God, the heathen are come into thine inheritance, thy holy temple they have defiled. They have laid Jerusalem on heaps. This psalm apparently is assumed to be about written following the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple by Babylon. The dead bodies of thy servants have they given to be meat unto the fowls of the heaven, the flesh of thy saints unto the beasts of the earth. So things were not going very well.
No.
Their blood have they shed like water round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. We are become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them that are round about us. How long, O Lord, wilt thou be angry forever? Shall thy jealousy burn like fire? Pour out thy wrath upon the heathen that have not known thee, and upon the kingdoms that have not called upon thy name. For they have devoured Jacob and laid waste his dwelling place. O remember not against us former iniquities. Let thy tender mercies speedily prevent us, for we are brought very low. Help us, O God, of our salvation, for the glory of thy name, and deliver us, and purge away our sins, for thy name's sake. Wherefore should the heathen say, Where is their God? Let him be known among the heathen in our sight, by the revenging of the blood of thy servants, which is shed. Let the sighing of the prisoner come before thee, according to the greatness of thy power. Preserve thou those that are appointed to die. And render unto our neighbors sevenfold into their bosom their reproach, wherewith they have reproached thee, O Lord. So we, thy people and sheep of thy pasture, will give thee thanks forever. We will show forth thy praise to all generations. So that was the Old Testament age.
Right. Okay.
So
Any different?
that was, well, you know, so the king talks about how Christians seem to believe that when Christ comes again, he will be a despot, a tyrant.
Right.
And this seems to be in the same mindset. Mm-hmm. So I see, so God, we're having some trouble here. Our enemies are, have destroyed our Jerusalem, and people are dying, and this way and that way. Please, strike them dead, or please, you got to do something about this. And so there isn't this sense like Father said. He never, when he was in Hungnam prison, he always prayed to God, "Don't worry about me.
Right.
I'm going to be all right. Don't worry about me." Mm-hmm. There's none of that kind of thinking here. No. Okay. It's all right. It's we're in trouble. You got to help us. We're just going to sit here and do nothing until you strike our enemies down with lightning. And so that's the way I feel. That's the spirit that I get from this psalm. All right. And it's okay. That's the Old Testament age. All right, I get it. That's their excuse. Okay, they're forgiven for that because that was their spiritual level. Today, though, I hope that we can be in a higher spiritual level. Because actually the circumstances in this psalm are very similar to what we have today. Where the heathen, in other words, the Family Federation.
Okay, we're going there this morning.
Okay, all right. Let's read this psalm again with a slight change. Oh God, the Family Federation are coming to thine inheritance. And the Kwak group are coming to thine inheritance. Okay. They've stolen all the money. All right. Okay. Thy holy temple, the Chongpyeong Palace, the Cheonbokgung. Right. All right. I'm hearing information from Korea that suggests, I don't know yet, that that they may be getting ready to, the Han Mother may be getting ready to sell the Cheonbokgung. The Cheonbokgung is the,
like the Holy of Holies?
Well, the Cheonbokgung is the large church that was established in Seoul. Okay. I don't know if people have actually been there, but there was a fundraising campaign. And I believe the entire budget was about $10 million to purchase the land. Most of that money went to the land because it's in the center of Seoul. Yeah, I think, as I recall, about $8.5 million went to the land, and $1.5 million. It was an existing building. It was actually a kind of it was a local government building, but anyway, it was and so the building was renovated, and that cost, I think, about $1.5 million. I'm pretty sure these figures are correct, and I'm sure at least the value of the land, I'm sure, probably has risen since then, especially since the U.S. base that was next door to that now has mostly moved out of that area and has returned the land to the city of Seoul. So I'm pretty sure the value of the land probably has gone up quite a bit. And I'm hearing that information that suggests to me that there may be a move afoot to sell that property. So that was a holy temple. Yeah. Father visited there, and and that is actually where he gave the title of World Peace and Unification Sanctuary.
Oh, really?
Yes, and when the king created his new ministry in Pennsylvania in 2013. When he was sort of discussing what name to give this new ministry, he finally decided to give it the English translation of the name that Father had given that ministry, right? World Peace and Unification Sanctuary. All right, sanctuary meaning holy temple. Yes. Okay. And so that was the holy temple that Father blessed, and thy holy temple have they defiled it. They have laid Jerusalem in heaps. So the dead bodies of thy servants. So dead bodies, spiritually, many people died. Yeah. Dead bodies of thy servants have they given to be meat unto the fowls of the heaven, the flesh of thy saints unto the beasts of the earth. The saints, again, so many blessed central families. Saints. Yes, were
sacrificed.
and the blood they shed. So the blood of a heavenly lineage that the blessed central families were carrying was all destroyed, was shed like water round about Jerusalem, and there was none there to bury them. We have become a reproach to our neighbors. Yeah, because now what has happened is that if the Han mother had united with father's desire and had to crown the king, then society, Korean society, and based on Korea, other nations as well would have really respected her and because Kukjinim and Hyungjinim were really reaching into the highest levels of society in Korea and in Japan and other countries. But now, because of this, the destruction of, or the division, you would say, or the betrayal of father's will, we are a reproach to our neighbors. In other words, the society around us.
Sure.
A scorn and derision to them that are round about us. That's true. But then, so that's the first 4 verses. But then in verse 5 it says, "How long, Lord, wilt thou be angry forever? Shall thy jealousy burn like fire?" So this psalmist is saying, well, how long does this have to go on?
Right.
But we're not saying that.
No.
We're saying, hey, and the king is saying, and we are saying, all right, they took everything, and we're terribly sorry about that, Father, and that's really a terrible thing. But we're going to rebuild this. We are going to rebuild this.
We are rebuilding it.
And we are rebuilding this. It's going to take maybe a little bit of time, but already a huge amount of has been accomplished, and we're continuing to do this. So we are not saying to God, how long is it going to take you to strike these people down with your lightning? We're not saying that. All right,
we're not waiting for that.
We're not saying that. Pour out thy wrath upon the family federation that have not known thee, and upon the kingdoms that have not called upon thy name. So we're not saying that, all right? We're not saying that.
Are we not?
Okay. We're not saying that, So we'll pour out thy wrath upon the family federation. We're not saying that, right? We're not saying that. We're not saying that. All right. Wherefore should the family federation say, "Where is their God? Let them be known among them." We're not saying that. Okay, we're not saying that. Okay. Okay. So, and render unto our neighbors sevenfold into their bosom their reproach. In other words, give them 7 times what they've given us. We're not saying that, all right?
Okay.
We're not saying that.
No, we're obviously not saying that this morning.
We're not saying that. No, we're saying, don't worry, God. We're going to take care of this. We're going to take care of this because it's our portion of responsibility.
That's right.
God sent the Messiah twice.
Right.
Twice.
Yes.
The Word became flesh twice. And Father gave us His Word, and He gave us His lineage. And we're a remnant, but watch out. We're coming.
Yeah, we are.
We're coming. We're training both internally and externally.
That's right.
And we're coming. We're coming. So that's how we should rewrite this psalm, maybe, in a completed Testament version. Okay, I understand. This is this psalmist is speaking from an Old Testament standpoint. Okay, but we're in the completed Testament age. We're in the completed Testament age, and we're facing a similar situation, but we're gonna get through this. We're gonna get through this. And God does not have to worry. All right? So let's go to the Cheonseongyung, unless you want to say something.
Well, sometimes our emotions, we are human beings, so we have emotions about things. So, we might feel this way sometimes. But
Okay.
I guess the fact that we make an intentional decision to love and forgive and to live in the completed Testament age as opposed to living in the Old Testament age, that's a virtue in a way. For us to do that, but at the same time, we're attentive to the will of God, and we're attentive to the time period that we're facing. And when the time comes, God will make a decision, separate good from evil, and will build His kingdom. I mean, we are the rod of iron ministry, after all. Yes,
we are the rod of iron ministry.
So the people on the other side take note. Of the rod of iron ministry.
Yes. Let's go. Can we go to the Cheonseongyung? We're in the book on the what is it in English? Pan-Pacific Providence, or what is it? What was it called? Pacific Rim Providence, I'm sorry. Never sure about these translations. And chapter 2, and on this copy I have page 1894. There is a gorgeous fish called the striped bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I caught a few of those.
You caught a few of those with Father on the Hudson River?
Good memories of striped bass.
This fish is more delicious than tuna. It is very sweet when served as raw fish. Let me see. Does he really say raw fish? Oh, yeah, okay, he does. All right. So I guess very sweet when served raw.
Sashimi.
But he doesn't use the word sashimi
No.
here. He says hue, which is, that's the word for raw fish. Actually, it's raw meat, actually. Just raw. Yeah,
Okay.
because you can also have, in Korea, you can order raw beef.
Okay.
Yes, I've had raw beef.
Yeah. Was it good?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. In certain restaurants, you can order it there. Anyway, the fish is more delicious than tuna. It is very sweet when served as raw fish. The meat has resilience and a sweet taste. Japanese people say that toro, in parentheses, the part of the tuna's stomach where most of the fat is found, is the best. However, once they taste the striped bass, they will all rush to it. Even so, Mother does not like sushi. At first, it feels as if you are chewing snake meat. I confess I have never had snake meat.
No.
I've had many other things, but I've never done...
Had alligator. Have you had alligator?
I have not done alligator either.
It's kind of white.
Well, let's continue with Father's words for just a minute. However, after having tasted the striped bass, True Mother has been saying, sashimi, sashimi, striped bass, sashimi. When I tell True Mother to get ready for fishing, she says, oh, really? And she follows me, knowing that we are going to fish for striped bass. This is why it is so interesting. And this is the reason why fishing is exciting and sensational. The king talks about how wonderful it would have been if Han Mother had united with Father in his outdoor activities, in fishing and in hunting, and in his excursions into the jungle in South America and Brazil. But she did not. And he says it would have been so wonderful if Han Mother had led the way, and said, "Okay, well, let's have women learn how to shoot or learn how to fish or let's go fishing as women," or sort of leading the way in this way. But instead, in most cases, she held back. Even in Korea, when Father would go to Koja Island, Koja Island is an island off the coast of southern coast of Korea, between the mainland and between the peninsula and Jeju Island. And Father preferred to go there. Actually, the king testifies, as opposed to the Cheongpyeong Palace.
Okay.
And he had another, what we called a palace built there, but it was nothing like the Cheongpyeong Palace. It was basically, I would say, a small fraction of the size.
Yeah.
And as I recall, it had 2 floors, I think, and then a few rooms. Maybe the permit was issued actually as a small inn, and that's basically what it looked like and what it more or less functioned as. But there was an apartment there for True Father, and he would prefer to go there, and on this small remote island, and stay in that facility. That was where he was surrounded by the sea, and where he sometimes went fishing there. The king notes that Father, when Father was younger, he would often go hunting, but as he grew older, and his physical body became less mobile, he preferred to go fishing, where he could sit on a boat and fish. But he spent most of his time, really much of his time, in the wilderness, in God's creation, and not in the fancy palace of Cheongpyeong. So some people ask, why did he permit the building of that palace if he didn't like it? But it was, I think it was pretty clear that this was part of his attempt to create an environment in which the Han Mother could have victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I think is true.
Yes, and a lot of people, especially Japanese members, say, "Well, we sacrificed a lot for that palace."
Mm-hmm.
And I know some Japanese members certainly did. Many, there are churches in Japan where all or almost all the members of that church went into personal bankruptcy because they charged so much money to their credit cards in order to make donations. They sold their property in order to make donations. And they made to make $1 million donation over the course of some years is quite common in the Japanese church. Was quite common in the Japanese church. I mean, $1 million donation. I made $1 million donations. Okay, well, so what? Tens of hundreds of thousands, literally thousands. I would say thousands of people in Japan made at least $1 million in donations. I think that I'm pretty confident in saying that is true. All right. $1 billion, yeah. I would say that, at least that much was made.
A lot of sacrifice, eh?
And I point out to them that to Father, establishing the True Mother, establishing the victorious Eve, was the most important thing in the world.
It was paramount.
And if he could establish the victorious Eve even at the cost of the entire universe, he would have done so. Because establishing that Eve, establishing the family of Adam, the victorious family of Adam, was the reason that he had come to Earth, and there was no sacrifice that was too great. And I think when I see how the Japanese members sacrificed, not the Korean members, not the American, not the Western members, how the Japanese members sacrificed and suffered for the sake of a father, so that Father could create that environment in which the Han Mother could have victory. He could create the environment, all right, but he could not actually force her to have victory. Okay,
that's right.
Because she had a portion of responsibility, but but he created money where she could buy jewels and all sorts of fancy things, and where she would have money to spend and have this tremendous palace and everything like that. But in the end, she, especially the palace, that she credited not Father for that, but herself and her mother, Temonim. I remember one meeting that happened in September of 2012, where we were called. I was a junior. I was an executive in the Tongan Foundation at that time, and all the executives of the Tongan Foundation and other people as well were called to the palace in Cheongpyeong for a meeting to sort of do an evaluation of Father's of the Songhwa events, and to sort of do an evaluation of that. And the Han Mother presided over that meeting. I guess there were about maybe 100 or so people there, and she named a few people to get up and give their impressions or give their assessment.
Passed, right?
Yeah, well, this was he passed on, by the Gregorian calendar, he passed on September 3rd, and his Songhwa was on September 15th, and this would have been around September 15th. It could have been slightly before or slightly after. I'm not exactly sure. Around September 15th, 2012. A few days before, a few days after. Can't say for sure. And she had she named a few people to get up, and give their sort of testimony. And people said, "Okay, it was great that so many congressmen came. It was great that so many, so and so came. This VIP came, that VIP came, and tens of thousands of people came, because really, literally tens of thousands of people came,
Wow.
and were over the 13-day period, and were ushered through both the main venue in the gymnasium at the bottom of the hill, and also thousands of people, maybe more than 10,000 people, also were allowed to go to up to the palace to view Father's physical body in the glass case during that period. But all this happened in a very orderly fashion.
Yeah.
We had a little hiccup with Hyun coming, and he was told that, okay, yes, you're a son, you can go up, and as a son you can do that. You can go up and view Father's body. But then he said, no, I want my entire entourage. He had several buses with him,
All right.
most of whom were not dressed to attend a funeral. They were dressed to go hiking.
Okay.
And it turns out that they were not even aware that they were going to a funeral.
Is that right? Okay.
So anyway, that little hiccup happened. Yes, that little hiccup happened. But other than that, it went very, very orderly. Yeah. And so people, said it really went well, et cetera, and the media coverage was really good, and this and that was good. And after all that, she said, "Well, you've missed the most important point." This is what Han Mother said.
Okay.
You've missed all of you have missed the most important point of all.
Which was?
Can you guess?
Something about herself?
The most important point of all was that her mother, Temonim, had arranged for the building of this gymnasium.
I see.
Yeah, she said that was the most important thing of all, because if we didn't have that gymnasium, that world, what's it called, Peace World Center.
Yeah. Okay.
If we didn't have that, we would have had to have this songhwa in some hotel someplace, and it would have been a very shabby. To her, I heard her use the word, the Korean word for shabby many times.
Yeah.
During that period, and to her, this was basically the worst thing of all. To be shabby. So being ostentatious was really great. Being with I don't know, bling. There you go. That's I'm sure she would approve of that word.
Okay.
Bling. So that was to her. This was the most important thing of all that everyone had missed. Right. But it was actually Father that had arranged for that. It was by his blessing that people had donated. Yeah. I mean, no one donated because of her or because of even Temonim. It was because Father permitted this and because Father blessed this that people donated to Cheongpyeong. But she completely ignored that and said, Temonim, my mother in spirit world, arranged for the building of this palace in that gymnasium at the bottom of the hill, and that is the most important thing of all. So,
but Father's temple was nature.
Yes,
Father was so comfortable.
Absolutely,
in nature. I have a little story about the striped bass sashimi.
Okay.
Yeah, like 20 years ago when I was at UTS, we had the opportunity to go fishing with Father. So a group of us, we'd go quite often. We were supposed to, Dr. Shimio was the president of UTS at the time, so it was sort of a reform movement of getting back to Father. Father called it Book 2 of UTS. And so he put this paper on the wall saying, okay, everyone can go like once a month fishing for Father, and you sign up. But to go, you had to get up like 3 o'clock in the morning. You had to, arrange your class schedule. So very few people went, right? But there were a group of us so we kind of took advantage of that by filling the spaces of others, right? So I had the opportunity to go fishing with Father more than a dozen times on the Hudson River, and we had at that time we had a lot of Japanese members there. They were young carp members with Mr. Otsuka, who was their leader, and they were J Carp, and they were all like in their 20s or early 30s, and they were new to America, and they were struggling with the food. They were struggling with the language. They're trying to study, in graduate school in English, and they're just trying to, learn the language, really. So I had a lot of empathy for those guys, and so I went fishing with Father, and I became fairly adept at catching stripers. So I caught a few stripers, and I thought, well, let's bring these back to UTS and bring them into the kitchen. Let them cut them up and make some sashimi, striped bass sashimi. Will surprise the Japanese brothers and sisters at dinner. So we actually did that, and you wouldn't believe the chortles of delight with those young Japanese brothers and sisters, just getting their little wasabi, green mustard, and all the soy sauce and the striped bass sashimi, you know. And yeah, it was tasty, also, Tim. But you know, the joy that Father generated through the activities he had in nature. I mean, the temple of God for Father was nature itself, and it's a shame that that the Han Mother could not experience that with Father. I know when I was in Brazil, you know, as a missionary, Han Mother came many times, and she stayed there, and you know, she would go out and fish with Father sometimes, because there were the two rivers and the Jardim farm that came together. It wasn't so difficult. You could go down and fish off the bank, or go in a boat. And you know, as a member, you don't really, you know, you're not really looking with a critical eye really at true parents. You know, you're just sort of hoping that things go well. And you know, it was somehow maybe her character wasn't such to be to enjoy fishing or to enjoy that lifestyle, you know. But you know, she was there with Father, and she would go fishing with Father, and she was making effort with Father to go along with Father. But Father was, you know, Father was just comfortable with God in nature, and Father would always seek for the place, the shabby place, Tim. That's the problem with Father. Father loved the shabby places, you know, and he turned the shabby places into heavenly places. And Father in Brazil would go and dig holes and lay bricks with the Paraguayans. I mean, the Paraguayans were lower than the Brazilians. Lower than the Brazilians. So the Paraguayans workers were recruited from Paraguay in the early days to do the construction work, and the Brazilians would be, you know, posturing themselves over the Paraguayans. Oh, those low-life Paraguayans, what are they doing here? So, you know, Father actually so much enjoyed, and this is what I enjoyed about Father. That was such a precious experience for me, to go fishing with Father, and then to go to Brazil as a missionary with Father, to sort of get out of the whole culture of hierarchy or, in a sense, mission in a developed country, you know. And that was a way for myself to cultivate a father-son relationship with Father on a deeper level. You know, I've carried that with me, really, and I feel that and see that in the second king. His heart and his relationship with Father is like that, and in a way, we, you know, it is incumbent upon us, Tim, to carry that forward. You know, to carry that who Father was and who Father is. I mean, I had the opportunity yesterday, spending a couple hours with the chief up the road here, meeting one of his young workers, John, and just having the opportunity to testify about Father. You know, telling him about Father's character, about how Father was a man's man. Father enjoyed fishing. Father enjoyed hunting. You know, and he's talking about Justin and car arms and this and that. And he's going, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I get it. Well, it's really great. We're brilliant people around here. We're brilliant people like yourself and like Justin and like Sean. So it's really, really important for us to talk about these things, you know, and to bring Father to life, and to, you know, to be shabby with true Father in nature.
Yes, let's do that. Let's testify to our true Father. Let's testify every opportunity we have. One friend of mine who wound up going to the Quack group, and his final email to me said, "I can no longer defend Father."
Really?
Yes.
Why?
But there were reasons. But my feeling, though, was that Father did not need anyone to defend him.
Right.
He needed people to testify to him.
Exactly.
That was my feeling. That I think that is where people often go wrong. We need to testify to Father. We need to testify to the second king. All right, let's take a break now. Okay, and we'll take a break now, and then we'll come back and start going through the news from a Choniku perspective. See you in a minute.
you're just willing to give it a try, and just let the universe and let God guide you from there on. And then it was not after 2 or a couple more trips with each other that we decided that, you know, this could work out, actually.
There was this really clear voice that came to me, like, in that moment, where it was just saying, like, well, Marshall hasn't rejected you, or Marshall sees you for who you are. And I kind of just, like, I kind of had me dumbfounded for a moment. I kind of just sat there, and I'm like, I started getting really choked up, actually, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and it was like that, in that moment, I, like, realized that everything that I've been praying for in terms of, like, having a man in my life, or, like, everything that I've been praying for God to have in a spouse, like, I realized that all those qualities were in Marshall. And it was a really, really deep realization. And then I'm like, oh my God, everything I was getting frustrated about earlier and all that short temper means nothing anymore, because I realize now, like, it took some sifting through, but I mean, like, I see now that this is really the man that God wants me, and the man that God sent to answer all my prayers. And from there on, I'm like, okay, that's it. Nothing else really matters. I don't care what he does. This I know is from God, and this I know is for real. So I can't turn my back on this now. And that was, for me, the moment that really sealed the deal in my heart. And then shortly after was when Marshall got the phone call.
Welcome back to the King's Report for January 13th, a Saturday in 2018. And Tim Elder and Ted O'Grady, and for the second King of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-moon. And we're going to start going through the news now. Let's look through some headlines. And as you know, there's a huge thing going on right now with something the president did or did not say about certain countries. Anyway, it's... I think it is a distraction.
Yeah.
It is and I'm not sure who's trying to distract us from what. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I am pretty sure who's trying to distract us. But anyway, let's go through it. Trump calls Haiti an S-hole. I'm not gonna. This is the King's Report after all. This is a family show, so we're gonna call this the S-hole or the Shemitah hole, I guess. Shemitah hole. Nice. Shemitah hole. Anyway. He slams immigration from Africa, denies comment, admits a tough language. So there is no video or there is no recording of him using this language or exactly what was said. But so this was a meeting with the Republicans, Democrats about immigration, which was not recorded. But people who were in the meeting, or at least I guess one or two people who were in the meeting, are making this allegation. I think the Democrats who were in the meeting are making this allegation that the president used the term Shemitah hole. Some I think one person saying that he used it on a number of occasions. So anyway, now Trump is threatening to record. He said he didn't say, and he's now threatening to record future Oval Office meetings. Recording Oval Office meetings. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, it sounds like President Nixon.
It does, doesn't it? Yes.
18 minutes of tape. Yes. Throw it in the fire, please.
Yes, President Nixon was recording all of his Oval Office meetings, and on magnetic tape at that time. Yeah. And then his secretary, what was her name?
I don't know. I don't remember.
But yeah, do you remember this? You remember this photograph where she was explaining why there was 18 minutes of silence? Where she mistakenly, she says, erased.
I see, okay.
While she was transcribing the tapes.
I see, mistakenly, okay.
This is one of the most famous photographs where she was demonstrating for the benefit of the White House press corps how she mistakenly reached over here and hit the record button or the erase button or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
While she was also doing something over here. And that's how we got 18 and a half minutes of silence. And that was a big thing in the Watergate scandal, right? So, so that was what happened. And I guess, I don't know, after that, presidents decided maybe I better not record Oval Office meetings. Right? And as I said, I mentioned one time when Father met Richard Nixon in the Oval Office one time with the Bohipak as translator. Bohipak says in his autobiography that Father told Richard Nixon to burn those tapes.
I heard that.
Yeah. He said, call a press conference, take them out onto the White House lawn, and have a press conference, and then put the tapes in a pile and throw gasoline on it and burn those things.
That would have been, to do it publicly like that would have been very dramatic.
Anyway, President Trump is now threatening to become Nixonian and start recording his Oval Office meetings. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
No,
all right, because a lot of stuff goes on the Oval Office that Nixon, as Nixon discovered, you might not want to come out in the future, because there was a lot of language there that I'm sure is still in the Nixon library. That Shemitah Hole is the least of it, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, vulgar. Some in Africa agree. Hey, CNN says Shemitah Hole 36 times. Shame on them. Yeah. Don Lemon, the CNN reporter, an African American, says people of color warned you. Media meltdown. Trump, evil, Nazi, terrorist sympathizer. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Tim. I have no sympathy for African Americans.
Let's not go there.
I'm a white guy, but I'm just going to tell everyone I have no sympathy for African. You know why? Because African Americans are blessed by God to be in the greatest country of the world.
We are all blessed by God in that way. Let's go through this media meltdown. The media reaction to President Trump using the word Shemitah Hole to describe countries some immigrants are fleeing was swift, harsh, and historically hyperbolic. In the hours after the Washington Post report surfaced, reporters and anchors on the major news networks called the president evil, a neo-Nazi, a terrorist sympathizer, a danger to non-white Americans, and so much more. To help keep track of it all, we've assembled the following compendium of the most unhinged media reactions to Trump's comments over the past 18 hours. 1. A writer at The Root, Jason Johnson, said these comments show Trump is a white supremacist, a terrorist sympathizer, and a danger to non-whites. How does this make him a terrorist sympathizer?
Yeah, honestly, I don't understand.
The president is a white supremacist, Johnson said Thursday night on MSNBC. Our president is a terrorist sympathizer. He wiped out ISIS in less than a year, all right, after Obama for 8 years could not do it.
Right.
So he sympathizes with them so much that he wiped them off the map. Anyway, our president is a clear and present danger to non-white people in America. It's that simple. There's no reason to pretend that's not what's going on. 2. MSNBC's Joe Scarborough said Friday morning that Trump's use of the word Shemitah Hole proves his theory that the commander-in-chief is suffering from early onset dementia.
Gosh.
Really? Let me just say, everybody knows that granddad and grandmom and people with early onset of dementia, I know this, I know this, all right? I'm the expert on this. Say things that they would have never said 5 or 6 years ago. Scarborough said, just ask members of my family and my mom about how they'll say stinging things about you or other people. I'm just saying. I'll bet you are. Stephen Colbert used Trump's comments to say that America is the real Shemitah Hole because we elected him president. MSNBC's Donnie Deutsch said Trump's comments prove he's not only racist, but also insane, crazy, and evil man.
I don't know if I can make it through this, Tim.
Really? MSNBC guest and former press secretary for Bernie Sanders, Erica Andiola, said the comment proves Trump's policies are rooted in white supremacy. So basically, it is. They've launched on this reported saying of this, which he denies, to just gush forth with their whatever's in them, that green stuff that is just in them, they're just coming out with that now. It's amazing that Trump has this ability to trigger these people.
He does.
It's amazing how he triggers these people, isn't it? ICE agents are now said that they are the Gestapo. NPR host compares ICE to Gestapo. Now, I don't know if people are aware of what Nazi and Gestapo and things like this mean. Because I think they're really sort of normalizing or really devaluing, or shall I say, diminishing the evil.
Are there armies of African Americans who, in altruism, seeing the horrible situation in Haiti with their brothers and sisters of color, going down there, saying, we're going to take care of this situation, we're going to extend the blessings that we've been given in America to love our brothers and sisters in Haiti, to elevate this country which is suffering economically. Do we see that, Tim?
Maybe this is a good time to play the Paul Joseph Watson video on this point. Can the tech team bring that up, please? Because I think what your comment just now is a good introduction to that video. Paul Joseph Watson on InfoWars has an excellent presentation on this. Go ahead.
Haiti were shitholes. What a racist! I mean, everyone knows Haiti is paradise.
A little more
on
volume,
earth.
please.
Wait, it gets worse. He's also telling Americans not to visit Haiti because they might get kidnapped or murdered. Racist! Oh no, it was Obama's State Department that said that. I guess they're racist too.
The President of the United States is racist.
I agree. It's bigoted and racist to
That
say
was
that
lemon.
some countries are shitholes. I mean, if that were true, everyone living in those countries would be trying to get to the West. And we all know that's not happening. Hey lefties, here's a question. Where would you rather go on holiday? Where would you rather live? Norway or Haiti?
Joan Walsh over on CNN, an analyst over there, was asked just a minute ago, would you rather live in Haiti or Norway? And she said with a straight face, I can't say.
Would you rather live in Norway or Haiti?
I didn't actually interrupt you. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been to either place. Why are you interrupting me? Why are you interrupting me?
You can't answer that question.
It's not Haiti, is it? Why? Because Haiti's a shithole. Why is Haiti a shithole? Corruption, poverty, and crime. It's got nothing to do with race. Look at the Dominican Republic. Same island, same natural resources, same brown people, as the left disparagingly calls them, doing way better than Haiti. Why? Because it's less corrupt, wealthier, and has a far lower crime rate. It's a nice place to visit. Westerners go on holiday there. Nothing to do with race. Here's a question. Why are the only wealthy white liberals to visit Haiti? The Clintons. Oh, I forgot. They didn't go on vacation. They just went to loot the country. And that reminds me. Don Lemon and Anderson Cooper were on the verge of tears because they care so much about the Haitian people. And that's why they were both so eager during the election to report on actual Haitians protesting against the Clintons for looting Haiti. Oh no, that's right. They both said fuck all about it, didn't they?
One of your big issues is how the Clinton Foundation
basically stole the money and never got to the masses. The Clintons have been doing evil deeds in Haiti for years.
But don't worry, because Chelsea Clinton's here to lecture us about how much she loves the Haitian people. After all, they paid for her wedding. Strange how the Haitian people don't seem to feel the same way about the Clintons. Takes an arsehole to know a shithole. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Gary's next BBC hosting gig. Holidays in Paradise, Haiti, where you're only a bit likely to get kidnapped and murdered, because it's not a shithole. Haiti, 219 murders per 100,000 residents per year. Norway, 0.56 murders per 100,000 residents per year. Haiti GDP per capita, $739. Norway GDP per capita, $70,000. Gee, I wonder which immigrants from those two countries would be easier to integrate. How about El Salvador? Option A, El Salvador isn't a shithole, so they don't need 17 years of temporary protected status, and migrants from there should be sent home immediately. Option B, El Salvador is in fact a shithole. El Salvador has a homicide rate more than triple that of Mexico, for God's sake. They celebrated when they went a day without a murder for the first time in 2 years because it was so rare. Why do you think everyone is trying to leave? Because it's a shithole.
These countries are crummy places, okay? They're holes or whatever, used profanity. But the people who left those countries, some of them rode trains all the way through Mexico or hid in a wheel well of a plane to leave, they would agree with that. So why the outrage? Is it you have to lie and pretend, as Joan Walsh does, that, I don't know, I'd live in Norway or Haiti? Like, we've gotten to a place where nobody can be honest about anything.
I guess it's only okay for people to refer to geographic locations as shitholes when they're talking about the places where deplorable redneck Trump supporters live. Fact is, some places are shitholes. I've lived in shitholes in my own country. Shitholes where the population is 90% white. Why are they shitholes? Crime and poverty. African governments are outraged at Trump. They're so outraged, they're returning the tens of billions of dollars in aid the US sends them every year. No, that's not actually happening. But what's this? Someone who agrees with Trump? Someone who claims countries in Africa are shitholes because of their corrupt governments and armed rebels who mutilate their victims? Who is this white Trump-supporting racist? Oh, it's Mamadi Traore, a 30-year-old sociologist living in Guinea.
Oh, but Trump shouldn't have said what he did in such a politically incorrect way.
Oh, boo-hoo. Trump's politically incorrect. Who knew?
This is how some people talk. Is it graceful? No. Is it polite or delicate? Absolutely not. Is it a little offensive? Of course it is. But you know what? This doesn't move the needle at all. This is who Trump is. He doesn't care. He shoots from the hip. And if he offends some people, fine. There's so many more offensive things that are happening in this world.
Exactly. Bottom line is this. Whether he actually used the word shithole or not, Trump was right. Some countries are shittier than others, and some immigrants assimilate better than others. And that's why none of you bloviating lefties will be booking any package holidays to Haiti anytime soon. No matter how much you moralise, how much you grandstand, how many fake crocodile tears you shed, the facts are the facts, and they don't care about your feelings. Some countries are shitholes.
Exactly. All right, thank you. You know, like you said, there are so many other offensive things going on. All the child trafficking, right? All the human trafficking, all the people being blown up by terrorists, all the rapes that are going on in Europe by the immigrants of some unknown origin, who's not related to any religion. Okay. You know, all this stuff going on. All right, all the human organ human organ harvesting going on in China. All the child abuse, all the really bad stuff, truly evil stuff that is going on in the world. The left focuses on the President of the United States using the word Shemitah Ho. All right, and it's clearly a distraction. Clearly, they are trying to score some kind of political points here, and it's clearly not one of the major things going on in the world, and yet on this, people are just saying, "Oh, this is Nazi. Oh, this is that." It is not. It is not. All right. Guess what? We did not elect a politician for president. No. We elected a man, and why? Because we didn't want a politician. This is why we voted for him. Like Paul Joseph Watson said, yeah, he's, or one of the guys the clips that he used, that's right, he's not politically correct. Yes, we didn't want a president who was politically correct. We had that. Yeah. You're right? We had that, and it didn't work out. We didn't want a president who speaks in niceties, what tries to help everybody feel good, and everything. That's not what we want. No. We want a president who's going to reduce the black unemployment rate to the lowest on record.
Which he's done.
We want a president who's going to get the Dow above 25,000 and is going to give America 3% or even 4% or more GDP growth. We want a president who's going to give us back more of our money that we earn. Is going to reduce our taxes. That's the kind of president that we wanted. And that's the kind of president that we got.
And then those are results you're saying right there that our president has done.
He's done.
Less than a year.
We want a president who is going to get rid of ISIS, all right? Who's not going to pussyfoot around like Obama did for 8 years, but who's going to liberate ISIS or liberate the Iraqis from ISIS in less than a year. Yeah. And we got that.
We got that.
All right?
So what are people complaining about?
But something about,
What kind of world do they want?
Yeah. So now he says he didn't say it. I wish he would go ahead and admit, yeah, that's right, I said that. So what? Frankly, I wish he would say that, even if he didn't. Yeah. Even if he didn't, because I would love him for it. Because as Paul Joseph Watson says, some countries are pretty bad places, and these people who are crying their crocodile tears are not about to book any vacations to Haiti or other places, or even to El Salvador in the next for a while.
That's right. And also, Paul Joseph Watson also said, if you notice, there are Shemitah holes in the UK as well that he grew up in.
Oh, I see. Okay. So he was referring to the UK. I thought.
Yeah, well, he's talking about estates in the UK. Right. So the UK has, I think he's from kind of working class background, that guy. So, UK is kind of more of a socialist type situation than it is here in the US. So there are like black holes, pockets of big, 60s styles apartment buildings like you see in Yonkers or,
those places are, I'm not going to go there anytime soon either. So.
Yeah, so the thing is that the Shemitah is not limited to the Shemitah hole countries.
Right, yes, that is true.
Shemitah can be, and it's not delineated by color either. Yes. So.
Now, he did make a comparison between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and I think that is a valid thing, and that's an important thing that I think only, as far as I can tell, only he has latched onto this point. But I think it's important, because you have an island there in the Caribbean, the island of Hispaniola, and there are two countries that share this one island. Not a big island, a fairly small island. One is Haiti, and the other is Dominican Republic. And he compared those two, and he showed that, that the Dominican Republic is actually a nice place to visit. Of course, it's a Spanish-speaking country, whereas Haiti is a French-speaking country. But he said that the huge difference, because Dominican Republic has far less corruption and less crime, and it's a relatively well-run country compared to Haiti, their neighbor.
Yeah.
And it's a straight line that goes down, north to south on the island, and one side is Dominican Republic and one side is Haiti. So, and the people who live there are similar ethnic background. So one is doing very poorly. One really is a Shemitah hole. So, it really is. And they get hit by the same hurricanes, all right?
Yeah.
Or earthquakes or whatever. When the ground shakes, it shakes on both sides of the island.
Yeah.
So how is it then that one side, Dominican Republic, is doing much better than this other side?
I heard something said that, there's voodoo in that culture, like in New Orleans and down to the French-speaking Cajuns and all that.
Yeah,
so I heard anecdotally that the early Haitian liberators made a deal with the devil to get out from under French rule. So meaning that they're under some kind of spiritual curse. By the way, Tim, President Trump did reach out to Haitians in South Florida during the campaign, which Hillary Clinton did not do.
Oh, Haitians in South Florida.
In South Florida.
Who came to Florida because their country is...
Yeah, there's a prosperous Haitian community in South Florida.
See there? Yeah. I mean, so they came to Florida, and in Florida they're prosperous.
And Trump gave them, went to a simple meeting with them, a luncheon meeting with them. Did you see it?
I didn't see that, no.
Yeah, in South Florida, because Hillary was not interested, and, Trump went there, listened to them, addressed their concerns. That's who Trump is, Tim.
All right, let's go through more of the headlines today. So anyway, we got that thing. But that's, that's the distractions. Let's put that aside, right? Let's not be distracted by that anymore. Let's see. ICE agents, Gestapo. UN is shocked. Vatican is harsh and offensive. President rejects the Dreamer deal. He said that. And basically the Democrats were negotiating with Trump about this immigration thing, and they seem to have used this to kind of blow up that negotiation.
Okay.
Sort of, and that's what has happened. So, anyway, so.
Is that not going forward now, the DACA negotiation?
Well, Trump has said that he doesn't, he's not going to accept what the Democrats are saying right now. So anyway, let's go on to stuff.
Okay.
Feds collect record taxes, still run $225 billion deficit. MSNBC Matthews jokes about giving Hillary Bill Cosby pill. Maddow viewer Republican death threats sparks investigation. Megyn Kelly being kept home for Olympics. She's not going to be going there. Under the microscope, Bezos steps out. He can't buy obscurity. Zuckerberg loses $2.9 billion after latest Facebook post. News Corp warns against political waiting. Saudi's richest man running out of time to make freedom deal. Netflix accused of glamorizing sex trafficking over Italian drama Baby. See, that's much more important, I think, than scandalous than anything the president may or may not have said. Chinese purchase of Grindr raises personal data security concerns. Tensions inflamed as authorities blow up megachurch.
Wow. That happened.
Yeah, let's look at that in a little bit later. Man diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 30. Another round of winter moves south. Okay. We're going to have more. As I said earlier, it's going to get cold. Sullivan, time to resist excesses of Me Too. To the left now, it's coming back to haunt them. So they say,
excesses of Me Too.
Yes. Trump lawyer arranged $130,000 payment to adult film star's Silence, which both Trump and the alleged woman here are denying. Oprah for president, a billboard in L.A. Somehow this Shemitah hole has sort of distracted us from Oprah, hasn't it? Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. USA to keep Iran nuke deal. But the president they'll put some conditions on that. We can look at that later on. Okay. The Supreme Court to review internet tax. Wonder Woman pleads for equality at Critics' Choice Awards. I will not be silenced. Well, she was given the microphone, so I guess not. Me Too economy. Hollywood lawyers, crisis PR pros, unprecedented uptick in business. Yes. There's a saying in Japan that when the wind blows, the bucket makers make a lot of money.
Yeah, meaning what?
Because when the wind blows, especially in the old times in Japan, buildings were made of wood. Okay. So when the wind blows, there'd be more fires, and then bucket makers would make more money because they could sell more buckets to people who are trying to put out the fires. Okay. So, anyways. Bloody world of hardcore wrestling fighters brawl with shards of glass. Oh boy! Wow. Musk admits a sex party. Elon says activities began after he left. Tanya Harding dumped by agent for plan to find journalists. TSA agents find cat packed in checked luggage. Inside Aaron Hernandez's life behind bars, a man who tried to save him. Mayor stripped of rifle by cops for shooting squirrels from truck. Kentucky first state to implement Medicaid work requirements. Puerto Rico fears murder surge, 32 dead in 11 days. Wow. They may be qualifying for an S-hole there, too.
Yeah.
Florida scrambled to help displaced. Tiniest ever baby, 1 pound. Wow. Ouch. How death got cool. A woman returns from trip to find other family living in her home. That actually happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can go and look at that too. Okay. But that's something that has happened from time to time. Postal worker burned tubs of mail for months. No wonder my $1 million check hasn't come through. Heart patients more likely to die if unmarried. Ultra runner accused of winning races. Come on, stop. My screen is Drudge is jumping around here.
Yeah. It's by hiding in a porta potty.
By hiding in a porta potty. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes people who run the marathons don't actually run the entire marathon.
Oh,
they sometimes take shortcuts, or there's a. Anyway, I have a pretty good idea what that's about. Okay. Orangutans, secret medical geniuses, apply own medicine. Kazakhstan. So I don't get this. When they talk about this, are they saying that orangutans evolved from humans? Is that why they're smarter than us? Anyway, Kazakhstan city residents worry as snow turns black. Wow. I think I have an idea what that's about too. I was one time, when planes fly from east coast of U.S. to to Asia, like especially to Korea. Yeah. They actually don't go over the Pacific.
Right.
From JFK, you make basically a straight line to the north coast of Alaska.
Yeah.
Then you come over and then you come into Russia, actually, and you come down from Russia into northeast China. And I remember flying that way, and it was a beautiful day. It was winter time, and there were no clouds, and I could see the ground. And I could see there were villages.
Yeah.
And the entire area is white, all right, with snow. But everywhere there was villages, the snow was black.
Really?
Yes. And it got less and less black and more white the further you got out from went from the village.
Okay.
Well, it's because of coal.
Yeah. They're burning, right? To keep warm.
It's because of the coal that they use there. So, because I still worry as snow turns black. Army rips out Chinese-made surveillance cameras overlooking the U.S. base. Good idea. Russia explosive war games. Thousands of troops simulate attack in huge drills. Okay.
Wow.
Trump physical excellent health. Yes, the doctor apparently is going to talk to reporters on Tuesday, apparently, about that. But we're not expected to get very much information on that.
No.
Zoom approval back to 46%. So, boom, stocks climb higher. The strongest holiday sales in generation.
Wow.
90% of workers likely to see more money in paycheck next month. But we don't care. We only want to know about what he said about Haiti.
Which was just observational, by the way.
Mueller interview fraught with peril for Trump. Yes, the special counsel. Yeah. Probably not a good idea for the president to do that interview, I would say. Yeah. Another CBS drama staging impeachment. They're trying to create that atmosphere. China biggest ever trade surplus with USA. California in revolt. I want to look at that article.
Yeah.
Fires, mudslides. Because, I want to ask the question, all right, so we talk about secession. Is there a way that we can kick out a state? Anyway, let's look at that later on.
Okay.
Fires, mudslides have some rethinking dream. Yes, the California dream. Deep Red Texas ready for gay Latina Dem? Virgin Atlantic will send tourists into space within months. I have some candidates for them.
Okay. Who are they?
City of Hate, armed man tries to steal coat off teen's back, and Cheetos thief threatens to blow head off clerk. For Cheetos? Come on.
Cheetos thief.
Food riots grip Venezuela. Mob slaughters cattle in field.
Wow.
Slaughters cattle in field. Now that is worthy of being upset that this socialist country, the people in that socialist country are having to go through this kind of a thing. Right, let's look at some of these articles. Let's see here. The IRS, okay. Right, let's take a break, and I will bring up some of these articles during the break, and we can start going through them. All right?
Okay.
Welcome back to the King's Report for January 13th, 2018. Tim Elder and Ted O'Grady in for the second king of Chengu, Hyung Moon. And I want to go into some of these issues that really are disturbing and talk about real evil in the world. Let's go into this one about the Chinese blowing up a Christian megachurch with dynamite on that left-hand column in the Drudge Report. This is on the Independent newspaper website, the UK paper, The Independent, and they're reporting this. Of course, the U.S. Media is too busy reporting on whether or not the president used this particular word to care about this kind of thing. Chinese authorities have demolished a well-known Christian megachurch, inflaming long-standing tensions between religious groups and the Communist Party. Witnesses and overseas activists said the paramilitary People's Armed Police used dynamite and excavators to destroy the Golden Lampstand Church, which has a congregation of more than 50,000 in the city of Linfen in Shaanxi Province. China Aid, a U.S.-based Christian advocacy group, said local authorities planted explosives in an underground worship hall to demolish the building, following constructed with nearly $2.6 million in contributions from local worshippers in one of China's poorest regions.
Really?
The church had faced repeated persecution by the Chinese government, said China Aid. Hundreds of police and hired thugs smashed the building and seized Bibles in an earlier crackdown in 2009 that ended with the arrest of church leaders. Those church leaders were given prison sentences of up to 7 years for charges of illegally occupying farmland and disturbing traffic order, according to state media. There are an estimated 60 million Christians in China, many of whom worship in independent congregations like the Golden Lampstand. Millions of Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims also worship in state-sanctioned assemblies. But the surging popularity of non-state approved churches has raised the ire of authorities, wary of any threats to the officially atheist Communist Party's rigid political and social control. Now this is, you see the, go down a little bit. Can you see the, if the tech team will go down a little bit further, you see that's the Golden Lampstand Church that was destroyed. And that's a pretty big church. And this was built with contributions in one of the poorest regions of China. Freedom of religion is guaranteed under China's constitution, so local authorities are often seen as using technicalities to attack unregistered churches. Charges of land or building violations and disturbing the peace are among the most common. The state-run Global Times newspaper reported the official reason for the demolition was the building did not hold the necessary permits. A Christian offered his farmland to a local Christian association, and they secretly built a church using the cover of building a warehouse, a government department official was quoted as saying. Religious groups must register with local religious affairs authorities under Chinese law, the report said, adding the church was illegally constructed nearly a decade ago in violation of building codes. Pictures distributed by China Aid showed the church's steeple and cross toppled in a large pile of rubble. The repeated persecution of Golden Lampstand Church demonstrates that the Chinese government has no respect for religious freedom or human rights, said China Aid President and founder Bob Fu. He added China Aid calls on the international community to openly condemn the bombing of this church building and urged the Chinese government to fairly compensate the Christians who paid for it and immediately cease these alarming demolitions of churches. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Bob Fu. The Western media is far too concerned with more important matters, such as...
holes?
Lewis doesn't want us saying that.
Who?
He wants
Lewis.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, Lewis.
Anyway, this is real evil going on in the world, folks. This is real evil going on in the world. Where in China, President Xi Jinping has said very recently, within the last month or so, that religious organizations must be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. As a matter of fact, everyone in China must be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. The military must be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. The government must be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. All workers and businesses and everything must be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party. This is the reality of China. That is real evil. That is, if the leftists in America want real evil, they can go to China, because that is where it is happening. It is happening. But they're just ignoring this because they have other more important things to talk about.
Christians will continue to flood into China. This type of persecution is going to accelerate Christian missionary activity. I don't reckon China can stay together too much longer.
They can stay together as long as they continue to expand, and that's what the Belt and Road.
I see.
What is it? One Belt, One Road. OBOR. One Belt, One Road project is all about. And of course, that is a sort of an international global infrastructure project that Xi Jinping has proposed. Where basically he's proposing two sort of modern Silk Road routes, is what he calls it. The land line to Europe, and then the ocean or the sea line to Europe. And their occupation, I would say, occupation of the South China Sea is a big part of that One Belt, One Road initiative.
Okay.
But the Chinese are investing in infrastructure in many developing countries, African countries in some cases, and in countries such as Venezuela, certainly one of those cases, where they sort of lend the money to the country, but then when the country cannot pay back the loan, then those infrastructure projects become owned by China. So they're really raping the world in that way as well. But the Western press, of course, is much too busy to cover those kinds of important things. Let's talk about California and revolt, how the progressive state plans to foil the Trump agenda. We don't want, we don't want unemployment going down.
No.
We don't want more money in our paychecks. We don't want that. We want to foil Trump's agenda.
Okay.
From immigration to the environment and recreational cannabis, state leaders and activists are finding paths to circumvent the administration. Will it work? But there is a good thing about this, though, because it does bring up the whole issue of states' rights.
Right.
And interestingly, it is the left that is bringing this up.
Yeah.
And that to me is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Because they are creating precedents that can be used later on. And so let's see what California is doing. I think states' rights are important. The whole 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says that anything that is any power or authority that is not, I'm paraphrasing here, that is not in the Constitution belongs to the states and to the people of the United States. And but because the federal government has become so strong that this has basically been completely eliminated. And a good example was Obama's thing with the bathroom rule. Saying that, okay, you have to allow both sexes to use, or any sex to use any bathroom they want. And if you don't do that, we're going to cut off funds. So the federal government now controls the states through this kind of funding. And they say, if you don't do what we tell you to, we're going to cut off funding. But then they also give unfunded, they tell the states to do things, but they don't give them money to do it with.
Right.
What are these calls? Unfunded
unfunded liabilities?
No, not unfunded liabilities. That's something else. But unfunded entitlements. I've forgotten the exact word. I'm sure people who are listening are screaming it. I'm sure because there is a word for it. But anyway, they tell the states to do X, Y, Z, but they don't give them any money to do that with.
Really?
So if we can increase states' rights, if we can strengthen states' rights. That's a good thing. And if the left is doing it, all right, we may disagree, and we will disagree on some of the things that they're doing it with, but in the long run, this is going to work out well. California prides itself on being the first with progressive laws on climate change, labor rights, and marijuana. In 2018, the Golden State's firsts are defensive, bold proposals, and legal maneuvers to protect citizens from Donald Trump. State leaders have pushed legislation and lawsuits to circumvent and undo Trump's agenda on immigration, the environment, internet freedom, and other liberal causes. Internet freedom actually is not internet freedom. It's internet regulation. But anyway, we'll get into that. One of the most consequential victories came Tuesday when a judge in San Francisco blocked the Trump administration's plan to end a program that allows 800,000 undocumented people to study and work in the U.S. Well, that's not exactly what it did. While the litigation is going on, they get to stay.
Okay.
At the same time, activists have also launched, which is being appealed, grassroots campaigns to shield residents from the White House's attacks and to pressure local Democrats to do more to mobilize the largest state against the president. So basically, it is an insurrection.
Yeah.
It is an insurrection by a state against the federal government, which, in and of itself, I think is not a bad thing. States should be able to rise up against the federal government. California lawmakers have adopted the most expansive sanctuary state law in the country, restricting police from questioning people about citizenship status and limiting cooperation with immigration and customs enforcement, ICE. And John Gibson, when he came on the show, said that in many cases states' rights may work out. So he said, particularly, he was talking about marijuana, immigration, and what was the other thing? Marijuana, immigration, and one more thing. He said where states' rights were likely to prevail. The state has also taken the Trump administration to court to challenge his travel ban on Muslim-majority countries and his decision to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. A U.S. judge in San Francisco sided with California on Tuesday in the DACA battle, ruling that the Obama-era program that protects dreamers, undocumented immigrants brought to the country as children, must remain in place while the litigation is going on. But Trump, who has a reputation for being vindictive and has openly expressed disdain for California, is on track to retaliate. ICE already arrested hundreds in targeted raids in sanctuary cities last year, and the agency's acting director has promised to ramp up deportations in the state this year, even suggesting California politicians should be prosecuted. Actually, what California is doing is creating a concentration of targets for ICE. Across California, vast networks of attorneys and volunteers advocates have formed, leading the resistance to ICE on the ground, sometimes saving lives in the process. Although Obama deported more immigrants. Obama deported more immigrants than any other president.
Did he?
Obama deported more immigrants than any other president. This is according to The Guardian. Is The Guardian conservative?
No, that's a left-wing.
See there?
Left-wing rag.
Left-wing rag says Obama deported more immigrants than any other president. The need is even greater now, with ICE indiscriminately picking up people in raids, according to the Maria Sofia Corona, an attorney working with the Los Angeles County Rapid Response Network. The immediate goal is to provide a first line of defense for community members that are facing removal from the country and imprisonment in government-run detention centers, which we, for many reasons, find inhumane. So now conservative people can start doing the same thing. Can start resisting the government in the same way. Say, hey, well, California's doing it. Why can't we? Yeah.
We do have right. It's a
you want to take away our guns? Wait a second. California, they're resisting. We're going to resist too. All right. So how do you feel about this, Ted? About this kind of a thing? Do you think it's going to? What do you think about how should we deal with California?
Let them do what they're going to do.
Let them do what they're going to do. Okay.
I think Trump needs to continue enforcing the immigration law and pursuing the immigration agenda. There was a big outcry over the DACA thing with Laura Ingraham and Ann Coulter on Fox the other night, and so and Laura Ingraham, man, she was really on fire about this. There was a lawyer. Sort of a Trump lawyer from New York making kind of semi-apology about DACA. But I think the immigration issue is that's like a third rail issue for Trump's base. It's something he really has to follow through on. It is, yeah, it is. And so, I would think with California, as long as it's part of the United States, then from his point of view, he should do absolutely everything he can do to enforce the federal laws. But the state does have the right to resist those things using the judges they have there and the politicians they have there. So it's healthy to have this battle and tension between the federal and the states, and there's no reason why other states can't take up other issues and assert their views, particularly when the federal government is overreaching power. So, no, it's not a big problem. it's actually quite healthy, I think, for the states to, stake out their ground and even controversial issues like this. But the DACA issue, I mean, the whole thing about immigration, the southern border, building the wall, in my opinion, this is something that Trump is not backing down on. He's negotiating right now, I think, to get that wall built.
I don't know if he is a businessman, and businessmen, I think, look at the long term, at least a successful businessman such as Trump. So he may compromise on that issue, I think, on some issues and see. And there are ideologues. I think Steve Bannon, I think his downfall was that he was an ideologue who would not compromise. And I think Trump is compromising, at least in a short term, in order to get his eventual goals in a longer term. I think he's that's the way I think he has done his business, and that's probably how he's trying to handle this situation as well.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
I mean, I agree with you in general, Tim, about the devolution of power toward the states and the localities, and the John Good Constitution advocates that very much so. I mean, there was a discussion yesterday in the King's Report about, well, maybe it was I think it was yesterday, about...
Lewis appreciates. Okay.
Okay, Lewis. With Lou Jasikoff the other day.
Yes.
He's talking about the New Hampshire state legislature.
Yes.
Having... it's one of the largest parliamentary bodies in the world, and it's voluntary.
Third largest, yes.
Yeah, so they pay $100 a year for that, and there's only 7,000 constituents in each district. And apparently, even though it's an unpaid position, there's more competition and more turnover of those positions than a place like Pennsylvania, for example.
In Pennsylvania, by the way, the lower house is considering reducing the number of members of that house, which Lou would say was actually, it seems like you're making government smaller, but no. If you want to make, it's actually, he says, we need more participation.
Yeah.
So it's better to have more members of the house, but don't pay them as much.
Exactly.
Don't pay this. It's
a citizen legislature.
New Hampshire paid them only $100 a year.
So John Good Constitution is what, 2,100 constituents.
That's right. One member of the House of Representatives for every 2,100 population. Yes.
Yeah, so there's going to be thousands, tens of thousands of representatives.
But no, not tens of thousands. No? We're talking millions.
Millions?
Well, millions. Because Chattanooga is going to cover the earth.
Okay.
Right? So if you divide, if we maintain today's population,
right,
divide 7 billion
by 2,100.
All right, I'm not even sure what that is.
Should I do that?
Yeah, you can do that. Meanwhile, while he's doing that,
7 billion divided by
2,100.
Okay.
Bloody violent inside the bloody world of hardcore wrestling, where fighters brawl with shards of glass, barbed wire bats, and fan-made weapons in ultra-violent death matches. These shocking pictures show. I'm not going to show these pictures.
Really?
They really are shocking.
Okay.
Shocking pictures show hardcore wrestlers fighting until they are dripping with blood and hurling themselves into fiery pits full of glass. This is right out of the Roman Colosseums.
Wow.
The only thing lacking here is the lions.
Yeah, 3.3 million.
3.3 million. There you go. Yeah. So and then I predict. All right.
Okay.
Prediction. All right. Write this down.
Okay.
That eventually we're going to have spaceships going into space.
Okay.
And they will also be under the Chattanooga Constitution if they choose to be, which they will. But
so are they going to live on spaceships? Or are we going to colonize Mars or
I think
Venus, Jupiter?
I think planets will be used as sources of raw materials. I don't think we necessarily have to go there and and colonize those surfaces.
Yeah.
Unless someone wants to maybe dig down and have a sort of an underground colony. Yeah. Something like that.
We could do. I suppose some people want to go to Mars. I heard. Is this a move to build a house there? Build a geodome?
Like I say, I've got candidates. If you want to send people out into space, I have some candidates that you can do that with.
So we're talking about bloody wrestling.
With a large and loyal following, these fighters travel across America and the world, taking part in ultra-violent wrestling events such as barefoot thumbtack matches before patching themselves up with super glue and hitting the road. Really? Others hurl themselves off rooftops or scaffolding into pits of fire, glass, barbed wire of all three in front of wild, cheering crowds. And they say
You know what happens, Tim, when you're training like that? Your adrenaline high it's so high. I think it becomes addictive for these type of guys, and you don't feel the pain when it's occurring. You feel it the next day.
I'm glad my son did not grow up to be one of these wrestlers. One of the sport's biggest stars is the bulldozer Matt Tremont, 30, who told Sun Online, "This is as real as it gets." Really? This is pretty unreal to me. When we're getting busted open the hard way. Whether that's a steel chair shot or being hit with a barbed wire bat or some other weapon, I've got the scars to prove it and the stories to tell. I've had many, many matches over the years, and physicality and the injuries are definitely very real. There's no special preparation. As crazy as it sounds, it's just another day at the office for me. I show up at a venue, I get dressed, I talk over the match with my opponent. We go in there with a general idea of what we're going to do. Then I just keep to myself, get in the zone, and once the bell rings, I go out and do my job, which is to entertain the crowd. Matt, who has wrestled around the world, including in Japan and the UK, says the most extreme thing he ever attempted was a move called the Death Valley Driver, which saw him leap from a 20-foot-high steel cage and crash through 3 sheets of glass with another 300-pound wrestler on his back.
What did they land in?
Unsurprisingly, injuries are common, but most hardcore wrestlers merely patch themselves up with sutras or glue and get ready for the next match. Matt says he is covered in scars from 11 years in the business. Knock on wood, I've never had any broken bones, but I've had many trips to the hospital to get stitched up or to close wounds, he said. I've had staples to the head, stitches to my arm and back, all kinds.
It's amazing he hasn't broken any bones.
It takes its toll. The barbed wire is very real. The glass is very real. It'll cut you up and scar you up. I'm scarred from head to toe, but those scars are a roadmap, and they tell a lot of the great stories. I think he says he talks to the opponent before he does the match. So I think they have a way of, and their purpose here is to please the crowd, and the crowd wants blood. So they do it so that there's a lot of blood, but no broken bones, I guess. And they have techniques of doing that.
I saw an MMA tournament in Brazil this time when I was there. Real life Brazilian in the Barrio fighting, and man, the interest in that fighting is really strong. Women love to see guys beating each other. And there was cage fighting. It was in the octagon, MMA fighting. So it's full on combat with everything, with fist fighting as well, and dangerous stuff. But somehow there's something primal in human beings that loves to see that. I don't know if it's evil or fallen. I think it's just guttural and primal. But I tell you what, the brasileiras, the women, I mean, they love to see guys beating each other up. And the guys love to see the girls beating each other up, too.
I'll pass. Okay. I'll pass.
But nice thing about MMA is that it's a real fight, It's like when Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather in boxing, right? It was made like $100 million on it. There was a pay-per-view promoted and everything. But at the end... he just ran out of gas, Conor McGregor, because there's only 5 rounds in MMA, and Floyd kind of just boxed him until he got too tired to fight, and so McGregor was like, no, I don't want to box anymore. I want a real fight. I'll do MMA. So to him, it's not a real fight because it's just only partial. With MMA, like you're fighting with everything. It's like the wake up call of going to the King's dojo,
Well, the king is training people to actually defend themselves, to be able to, is giving people real techniques and skills, to be able to, empty-handed skills. And also, he's also giving weapons training as well, empty-handed and weapons training skills, so that people can survive in a much more hostile environment, when our environment turns much more hostile. Exactly. Which we, during this period of judgment, need to expect.
True.
And so there is real value in what he is doing.
Oh, definitely.
But these guys, they're entertaining with by spilling blood.
Yeah.
So I see a difference there. I mean, it is definitely out of the Roman Colosseums, and it is definitely blood and circus. Blood and circus, or bread and circus, or blood and circus.
It's blood and circus.
Blood and circus, yeah. And really, the only thing missing here are the lions.
Yeah.
But apparently these people, this guy's been doing it for 11 years, and he's had no broken bones.
Yeah. It's a little bit contrived.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know?
A lot of bloods, but no broken bones. Yeah.
But like the King's saying, what it does is totally destroy delusions. Because what I discovered, at being a novice in
his training,
is that with like BJJ or MMA, if you're in a real fight, right, when you're submitted, you're dead. You know, you're literally dead. If you tap the guy out, he lets you go. You know, but if you're choked out and he holds that choke, you're going to die.
Yes.
So it really very quickly eliminates delusions, and like the King keeps saying, you know, these liberal lunatics, these these Antifa people who think they can be superheroes after playing their video games are going to have a wake up call when, like a real person comes and fights them.
Yes.
So he's training us to control our emotions, you know, to be real, be able to step into a situation and control it, you know, rather than being victimized by our emotions. I don't know about these guys. They just have an entertainment thing going on, but still they have to to go through that kind of fight. They have to have gone through that, crossed over that line as well to sacrifice their bodies, and like he said, once he decides to fight, he forgets about everything and he just does his job. He knows he's going to get hurt. But like I said, the adrenaline is pumping during the fight. You don't necessarily feel too much, but I'm wondering how they can keep going. I mean, if they just stitch up and use super glue, are they really fighting the next day? I wouldn't think so. They got to have a week or so between fights.
I don't know. Anyway, that's something that's going on. Let's get back to some more, I don't know, less, anyway.
Yeah, less bloody.
In the end, it's all about blood, isn't it?
It is. It's all in the blood. There's power in the blood, Tim.
Wall Street Journal has an editorial on what's going on in Germany. This morning, I'd like to look at that.
Germany.
Yes.
That's where Christian Seeberger lives, right?
Yes. Germany's Coalition of the Losing. It's called
Coalition of Losing.
The Coalition of the Losing.
Of the Losing. Okay.
Yes. So the losers get together to create a coalition.
Okay, I got you.
Or the losing people.
Okay.
All right. Not the winners, but not the winning people, but the losing people.
So they're forming a government with a coalition of the losers?
Well, let's find out. Angela Merkel took a big step Friday towards forming a new government at long last. So big step.
All right.
And it's not a step forward.
Okay.
She's paying a price for the stability that Germans are said to crave. Mrs. Merkel has struggled to form a governing coalition since September's murky election result left her Christian Democratic Alliance as the largest bloc in the parliament, but with a much diminished plurality. So the election was in September, and they still haven't been able to form a government since after, 4 months, yes.
Gosh.
She first tried and failed to form an odd fellow deal with the Free Democrats and the urban leftist Greens. Now she has turned to the center-left Social Democrats to form another unlikely grand coalition of the sort with which she governed for 8 of her 12 years in power. The SPD came reluctantly to the latest coalition talks, SPD meaning the Social Democrats. After suffering their worst electoral showing since 1949, SPD rightly concluded that voters had punished them for cooperating with Mrs. Merkel instead of offering an alternative. Some had argued the party should enter a new grand coalition only if it could drag Mrs. Merkel much further to the left. Wall Street Journal. getting further and farther mixed up there. Anyway, the SPD rank and file could still tank the latest deal in a party vote later this month if they don't think it goes far enough. From that perspective, Friday's preliminary deal could have been worse. Mrs. Merkel has won permission to offer 10 billion euros in income tax relief by phasing out a solidarity surcharge originally imposed to rebuild the former East Germany. But both parties also admit Germany won't meet its ruinously expensive goal of reducing CO2 emissions by 40% below 1990 levels by 2020. They now commit vaguely to hitting that target as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yet most of the rest of the deal consists of bows to the SPD on economics. Rather than more aggressive tax relief, the outline agreement foresees 36 billion euros in public works and other spending. Mrs. Merkel also will make some pension benefits more generous and shift more of the cost of health insurance to employers from employees. This follows a coalition deal with the SPD 4 years ago that lowered the retirement age and introduced a minimum wage, among other sops to the left. Taken together, this means Mrs. Merkel would finish this term in 2021, having spent 8 years eroding the labor market reforms of the early 2000s that revived Germany as an economic engine in Europe. This coalition agreement won't cause a resilient economy to stall, but it will leave Germany more exposed to the next global slowdown. If such policy compromises were popular, Mrs. Merkel would have won enough votes in September to keep her from having to form another coalition of the losing, despite a healthy economy. Voters seem to want more, which is why they turn to parties like FDP and the far-right Alternative for Germany to protest Mrs. Merkel's lock on power. With her time in office almost certainly ending in 4 years, the pressing question now is whether any other mainstream German political party will do better at offering serious policy alternatives. So this is a preliminary agreement with the Social Democratic Party, which still has to be approved by the rank and file of the SPD. And if it's rejected, then she'll either go back, and try. Well, I guess she'll have to call another election. That would seem to be the only alternative left. If that's so. So, Europe has been a slow train wreck now for years. European Union, especially, a very slow train wreck, and certainly I think UK was acted wisely in voting to end their relationship with Europe, and they're of course going through a 2-year period of implementing that departure. And Nigel Farage has predicted that because Nigel Farage, what Nigel Farage said was that, look, after that vote, the leavers, that is the people who wanted to leave the EU, had a number of organizations that were gathering votes or campaigning for that referendum. Right. And after the referendum, those leave organizations have sort of disbanded or scaled down. Whereas the Remain organizations are still there, and they're still demonstrating, and they're still trying to get another vote. And Nigel Farage was saying that he's concerned about that because he said he was saying that he does not want another referendum, but UK may be forced to do another referendum. But if there is another referendum, he's confident that they would win again. The Leaves would win again. Whereas other people in the Leave camp are saying, no, this is just Nigel Farage trying to remain relevant, trying to get publicity for himself. There's not going to be another referendum, and just talking about the referendum hurts UK's negotiating position, so we shouldn't even be talking about it. I don't know. I don't know enough about what's going on in UK to say who's right. I guess time will tell. But anyway, they're going through that period, and they've almost eaten up the first year of that, right? Because it's March, end of March. End of March is when Theresa May actually triggered the 2-year period.
Was it this past year then, the end of March?
2017.
The vote was on 23rd of June.
Right, but then after that, then I think in March of 2017, she triggered that 2-year period.
2-year period.
Right, by invoking the relevant article in the EU treaty. Okay. So they've almost eaten up the first year.
Yeah. Got 1 year to go.
Yeah, 1 year plus 2 months and a half to go. You know, and I guess there's fear that the UK may be forced into what they call a hard Brexit.
Right.
Where, you know, you go to a point where one day EU laws no longer apply and everything is sort of tossed into pandemonium.
It won't be pandemonium, but the businessmen are worried because they, you know, it's easier to have EU just to make things flow more easily.
Right.
But actually, you know, overall, in my opinion, Brexit will make the UK stronger.
Yeah, it will,
economically. It actually has helped the economy in the UK.
But there is a certain, you know, tearing apart period.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like California leaving the United States. You know, there's it's not a painless process.
Right.
So there certainly is a pain, but I also think that the UK will be stronger in the not just long term, but even in the midterm. So now we have Germany. The reason I bring up that is that we have, you know, Germany. Merkel, obviously, as it says here, is in her last years of power.
Right.
Whether that is 4 more years or whether it is just 4 more months, we don't know. But obviously, she's coming close to the end of her time in power, and things are more and more in disarray in Germany.
Yeah.
And the EU really relies on Germany for its stability. I mean, it's basically it was the Germany, France, and UK.
Yeah.
Now it's Germany, France. All right, those are the you know, without being, you know, accused of you know, calling the remainder of the EU an S-hole country.
They're not that bad.
Yeah, they're not that bad. But, you know, basically, all right, it's France and Germany now. It's basically France and Germany, which, by the way, is the whole reason why this thing got started in the first place.
Right.
The whole idea behind NATO, the whole idea behind the Cole Agreement, which was the first international organization after World War II, which eventually developed into the common market and then into the EU. The whole idea was to keep France and Germany from fighting another war against each other. All right, that was the basic reason for all this. And also the elites wanted to control the world. I know that's also true. But anyway, so now we're back to France and Germany in the EU. Yeah. And Germany is not, you know, France, of course, is doing what it always does. Germany is craves stability, but it's becoming less and less stable.
Right.
So what are the Germans going to do when they crave stability, but things are no longer stable? We'll have to, but they're turning to you know, this alternative for Germany. Wall Street Journal calls it the far right. I wouldn't say it's far right. It's very Trumpian, I would say. And I would rather than being far right, it might just be realistic. And they are trying to present an alternative, and I think eventually Germans may turn to that. So it is the slow train wreck that is EU that is going on, but it is anyway a train wreck, and I think more and more Merkel and others realize that. And so actually I think that strengthens the UK's position, because I think in the mid to long term, the EU countries, or especially France and Germany, are going to be relying on the UK.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so just hold on, and I think things will get better for the UK as they get worse and worse for France and Germany.
Of course, the King and Kukjinim are on their way to Switzerland in a week.
Yes. And
that's huge to me.
Well, we're not saying exactly when they're going, because, you know, we'd like to.
Well, in sometime
keep that a mystery
within the next year or so.
Yes, sometime within,
but
or less. Yes.
So you know, thing is, in Europe, Tim, it's like demographic suicide. This is the thing, because the Muslim men they're continuing to propagate. They're continuing to breed. I mean, that was noticeable.
When I remember Father talking about this. I don't know where it is in Father's speeches, but I remember him saying that, hey, it's the ethnic groups that reproduce a lot that are going to win.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look at,
I remember, I think I was in Belgium when I heard him say that.
54 million abortions since the 70s. Okay, so basically we've committed suicide And now,
well, Europe a lot more than the United States.
Yeah, but the U.S. has 54 million abortions.
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're filling that with immigration from Latin America, right, to fill those jobs. Who wants to go out? In the UK, you got people working in farms from Portugal and Africa, everywhere else, who go out into the fields and pick vegetables. And the the British kids don't want to do that. The American kids don't want to do what the Mexican migrants are going working in chicken factories. I mean, that's horrendous. You know, so in a way, you can say, well, we've made our own bed. We have to sleep in it now.
Well, and this is the thing that people say about Germany, that without immigration, the German population is going to go down because they're not having babies.
Right. And people start having more babies.
Well, and so they're trying to fill that void with immigrants from the Middle East. But of course, those immigrants from the Middle East are not assimilating and are actually coming in with a new civilization, a new culture that is going to, and it's not a Christian culture, and it's a very misogynistic culture, and it's a what they would call homophobic culture, non-human rights culture, and so forth.
But also in the UK, Tim, when I left there a couple of years ago, there's a baby boom going on in London from Eastern European couples like Poles and Romanians and Bulgarians.
People with traditional values.
Yes, exactly. Family-oriented. They come into places like Dagenham.
And this is the point.
London.
The left has destroyed the family, and guess what? When you destroy the family, people stop reproducing because that's part of having a family is to have babies.
So I mean, that type of immigration is under the surface. That's going on also.
Yes.
I would imagine in other countries in Europe as well, because part of the EU is opening up Eastern Europe to Western Europe. So there's free movement between Eastern and Western Europe. And I would suspect that with the trend of the times, the ATF and this kind of thing, that we will see the countries of Eastern Europe now, including Austria, right, Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Slovakia, Czech, those countries now are coming into sovereignty.
They are.
So they're getting stronger. Austria has that young leader, sovereignty base. You have this going on in Germany.
And I'll bet the laws begin to change in Germany as well. I'll bet that the people who want sovereignty are going to start speaking up more loudly in Germany, and that gun laws will start to be relaxed. And in the EU, I'm sure that if anyone in Brussels is listening to this, they will start screaming, "No, no, no, no!" But I think gun laws are going to start to become more liberal. Liberal meaning more people will be able to own guns and more types of guns. So that's my prediction. And I think that the king going to Switzerland is going to establish a very important foundation for that.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think that because every time he sets this type of a condition, such as liberating unborn children or crowning a true mother, whenever these kinds of conditions are set by the king, we see fundamental changes going on in the world. And so I predict that there will be fundamental changes in Europe following his visit to Switzerland. So in that sense, I think it's very important. And we need to pray for that because Satan also realizes that this is an important event. And he will try to prevent it or try to attack it or invade it, I'm sure. So we need to be prepared for that and protect him with our prayers. So we go to another article?
Could do.
Or let's take a 5-minute break right about now. It's about time for that. And then we'll go to another article after that.
We kind of lost the sense of why we were doing this, why we were going through this, and kind of felt rushed because we only knew each other for about 2 months actually.
Only 1 month.
1 month? Okay, 1 month. before the matching ceremony we had. And so yeah, we started having a hard time. And so like for me, like, you know, you get kind of fooled by Hollywood, and I think that's where my biggest trouble was, because I didn't know how to be an actual good husband at that time and how to like really work with a woman before. So Hyun really gave me clear direction. And basically, you know, he just said like, you know, you have to be strong, you have to be, you know, confident in yourself and not be so worried about yourself. You have to be confident in who you are, kind of thing.
The more I had to wait, the more attacking was getting much more intense, and I was really struggling at the time. So, you know, and you know, I could feel Satan was just trying to attack me, playing with my emotions, making me really complicated and confused. And it got to the point where it turned me very negative about the blessing. So, and that time I knew the way to overcome this situation was, you know, just holding on to God and His words, because I don't think I'll be ever to overcome this situation alone. You know, that time I really felt I really need God by my side. So I started doing conditions, prayer and Rima. And doing that, through that, I really realized, you know, God was really straightforward to me and just, you know, sending these messages to me, you know, telling me to be thankful. I realized, you know, God really wanted this blessing to happen.
It's a blessing of marriage, but you know, the blessing of marriage is supposed to be full of joy unspeakable.
I mean, the blessing itself is amazing. I mean, it was a very special experience. I mean, it was the biggest day of my life, and we had all our family there. People came from all the way from Colorado. This one couple even like. From Colorado came like last minute. They took like a bus to get here, and I just felt like so much love from friends, family. I felt God's love. I mean, I just couldn't believe that I was getting blessed, you know, like that day finally came, and I was just totally peaceful and excited, and it was an amazing experience.
Well, for me, there was one particular moment. First of all, the whole ceremony, I did not have one moment the feeling it was about us. Mm-hmm. It was literally about true Father giving. He was the walking God on earth, giving us the blessing, which
Little
Welcome back to the King's Report for January 13th, 2018. Tim Elder and Ted O'Grady, and for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-moon. And we had a brief power outage during the break. Wasn't it convenient that it happened during the break?
It was.
But anyway, we are back, and we're strong. I want to go through an article right now that a scam where what happens is that you go on vacation and you come back home and you find someone else living in your home. Yeah. And they actually think it's their home in many cases. Some cases not. Sometimes they're in on the scam. But
really?
And this was apparently the first time that this happened in this particular community where this article comes from in South Carolina. But I've heard of this happening elsewhere before, and it's not so uncommon. I think we need to be aware of it, that this is one of the types of ways that Satan can invade. A South Carolina woman returns from trip to find another family living in her home. Catherine Lang arrived to her new Beaufort home Sunday to find someone else's clothes churning in the washing machine and her dishes stored away. Dogs and a cat roamed Lang's home, and two women were talking inside. A couch rested on the back porch. Another family was moving in. I said, "What are you doing in my house?" Lang said. It became clear to me. What happened.
Yeah.
The would-be tenants had been scammed. In other words, the people who had moved in had been scammed. All right?
I see, okay.
Yeah. The 22-year-old victim, Tigra Shepard, said she moved to the area from Kentucky with her husband for better job prospects. Shepard responded to a post on a Beaufort Facebook group from a woman named Rosie Ruggles offering homes for rent. Shepard had sent her two small children to stay with her family in Kentucky while she looked for a place to live while staying with her friend in Beaufort. The newly renovated 3-bedroom home advertised for $850 a month seemed ideal. Except that this person was renting a home that was not hers.
Right.
I was so crushed when I found out it was a scam, Shepard said. Finding a place to live in Beaufort is hard when you need something you can afford and still raise a family adequately. Lang bought the house in October but had been staying in her previous house while waiting for it to sell. She returned from a 10-day vacation and visited her new home in Pigeon Point to check the pipes after the recent freeze. She drove up to see the door to her shed at the end of the driveway open and unfamiliar items inside. Two women were in the house, and one began to cry when it was clear Lang owned the home, Lang said. Lang thought the home had been watched during renovation work before she bought the home, when a key had been kept under a plastic cover on an outdoor electrical outlet. The landlord, in quotes, had advertised the home as furnished and described items Lang had already moved into the home, including books and kitchen tools. Shepard eventually wired the scammers $1,150 per a fake lease agreement and was told the keys would be mailed. The suspected scammer then told the victim the delivery driver with the keys had been arrested and the truck impounded.
Oh, there's a red flag right there.
Shepard was told the back door was open and that she could begin moving her things in. She made it very believable, Shepard said. When Lang arrived, small dogs were running in the house, a cat was perched on the running washing machine, and food was cooking on Lang's stove. A flat-screen television from one of Lang's bedrooms had been moved to the mantel. Police were called, and the woman agreed on a timeline for Shepard to move out. Shepard was encouraged to file a report with the FBI, she said. This is the only report of a rental scam in Beaufort police have received, investigator Stephanie Carafa said. Police are often in contact with local property managers. A 3-officer police task force meets monthly with they tell people to send the deposit to a certain address, and people trustingly do that. Trugden said people just really have to do their research when they do anything online and find a reputable company. Somebody you can verify exists. Good idea, huh?
Yeah.
Shepard also cautioned prospective renters to meet their landlord in person and not deal online. While with Shepard in her house Sunday, Lang called a number for the apparent scam artist, and a person who answered hung up after Lang identified herself. The person Shepard communicated with on Facebook blocked her on the social media site and also blocked her number. Lang decided not to wait for her previous home to sell and plans to move soon into the 3-bedroom cottage in Pigeon Point. The locksmith arrived Tuesday afternoon. The locksmith arrived.
I had something like that happen to me in the UK. I get, not to that extent, but I got scammed out of 70 pounds. And it was a guy who was advertising, I was looking for a place to rent, like a little mobile home. And, you know, they put ads on Craigslist or something like that. And then you got to pay the fee up front, you know, to reserve the place, you know, so that's how they get you. So then you got to make a decision. Well, am I going to just trust this guy and risk 70 pounds, which is about $120, or not? So then I paid him the 70 pounds, and then went over the next day looking for this place that he, you know, that he said was a real place. I couldn't find it, couldn't find the address. Then I called the person back, and they still sounded believable. The thing about a con artist is they're very believable, you know. You call them back a second time, third time.
They're good. They're
still
good.
telling you, oh, no, it's over there. Well, we'll check on that for you, you know. You want a refund? Okay, we'll get you a refund. Never see a refund. You know.
They're good.
There are people in this world who are very, very sharp, you know. Because in Brazil, you got to be really careful about this.
Well, the king talks about a certain percentage of the population being psychopathic.
That's right.
And I think this would qualify part of that. They don't care who they hurt. They just feel that the world owes them a decent living or wealth or something like that. And they don't care who they hurt or who they kill or whose lives they destroy, as long as they get what they're after. And we have to be careful for those kinds of people, because you know we're just normal people and we trust people. And you know, like you said, they sound very believable, and they have studied, figured out how to gain the trust of I don't want to say naive people, but innocent people. So we really do need to trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
President Reagan said, yes, trust but verify. All right?
There's about 40% of sociopathic as well, I heard.
That's what the king, yes, 10% psychopathic and 40% sociopathic are the statistics that he is citing. Let's look at the flu season this year. Is that okay?
Yeah.
The flu season is shaping as one of the worst in years, officials say. The entire continental United States is experiencing widespread flu right now. The first time in the 13 years of the current tracking system that has happened, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So how come they're not controlling or preventing? Anyway, I don't know. The officials said that this flu season is shaping up to be one of the worst in recent years. The official flu hospitalizations, the number of people hospitalized with flu per 100,000, nearly doubled last week compared with the previous week. Last week it was 22.7 per 100,000 people. The week before that, the rate was 13.7. At the peak of the 2014 to 15 season, one of the two most severe seasons in the last 13 years, or last 15 years, or so, 29.9 people out of every 100,000 were hospitalized for flu.
Wow.
The latest data for the week ending January 6th suggests that the season may be peaking right now. The CDC's director, Dr. Brenda Fitzgerald, told reporters Friday, but she warned that many more people will be infected before the season is over.
Really?
There's a difference between an active flu season, when a large number of people get sick, and a severe season, when the numbers of people hospitalized for flu or who die from the infection are unusually high. It can be hard to tell in real time where a flu season will fall on the severity scale, because sometimes reports of influenza hospitalizations and deaths, especially deaths among children, lag. That said, this year is starting to look like a severe season, and maybe more severe than last year, which was also bad, said Dr. Dan Jernigan, head of CDC's influenza division. There's lots of flu in lots of places, he said. So far, Jernigan said this year's season doesn't appear to be quite as bad as 14-15. The influenza A virus, H3N2, has caused the lion's share of the illness in most parts of the country this year. But recently there's been an uptick in activity by another influenza A virus, H1N1. Jernigan said, warning that even if the season appears to have peaked, flu viruses will circulate for weeks to come, and people should continue to take precautions against getting infected. Jernigan said that people over the age of 65 are being hospitalized for flu this season more than any other population. Even people aged 50 to 64 are being hospitalized in high numbers. Flu often hits the ends of the age spectrum more than the middle, and that's the case this year as well. The CDC reported 7 more children have died from flu, bringing the season total to 20 so far. While tragic, that number is low in comparison with other years, 110 last year, 92 in 2015-16. Wow. But if other seasons are a gauge, that grim tally may continue to rise in coming weeks. Officials feared that the flu vaccine may not work particularly well this season, but it appears to be faring slightly better than expected. Preliminary testing by the CDC suggests the vaccine is probably more protective than it was in Australia during the 2017 winter. The Australian interim estimate suggested the H3N2 component of the vaccine, and H3N2 was the main virus there during their most recent winter, was only about 10% effective. That means if 100 people got the flu shot and all were exposed to H3N2 viruses, only 10 would have been protected. Jernigan said it looks more like the H3N2 portion of the vaccine is performing here like it did last year when it was 34% effective at preventing infection. 34% is supposed to be good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's about on par for the flu shot's H3N2 component, which is the weak link of flu vaccine. The CDC should have interim data on the question of the vaccine's effectiveness in the second half of February.
It's a few weeks away.
Yes. So, so just be warned that, and the vaccine is 34% effective at best, it seems. Only, so.
Well, they want to get vaccines out there. They want to sell the vaccines.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they want to get the vaccines out there. Yes. So let's be careful. And the king's prescription for these kinds of ailments is vinegar.
Okay. Do you take vinegar? I don't.
Let's move on.
I don't know whether I have flu. I've had this chest cold for about a week or so. But the king always talks about keeping our core body temperature warm. You know, I asked Rio about this last week about how do you actually get a cold. I mean, and or maybe it was you, Tim. But I guess the idea is when it gets cold, your immune system gets somehow compromised. I
don't think it was me.
No, I think it was Rio. Anyway, if you keep your core body temperature warm, then you're less likely to get infected, apparently. So, which is, I guess, why in the wintertime we're more vulnerable to infections. You know, and I know I've been very, very, very irresponsible in taking care of my health and being aware of my core body temperature over the years. So, everything's a learning curve here in Northeast Pennsylvania, Tim.
Meanwhile, let's go to President Trump's health.
Yes.
Let's see whether he's coming
Excellent
down with
health.
President Donald Trump's medical exam went exceptionally well, doctors say. President Trump received his first ever medical exam as president on Friday. The doctor in charge of the exam said it went exceptionally well. The White House physician who supervised the exam will brief reporters about its findings on Tuesday. So President Donald Trump on Friday received his annual medical checkup, his first ever while serving as commander-in-chief. The doctor in charge of the exam said it went exceptionally well, although he did not divulge any further details. Trump's checkup, conducted by Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, did not include a psychiatric exam, despite recent questions being raised about his mental faculties.
They found any early onset dementia?
He walked out of the hospital Friday afternoon. Trump on Thursday had said he expected the exam would go very well. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't. The 71-year-old Trump, who last January became the oldest person ever to take office as president, it better go well, otherwise the stock market will not be happy.
Trump's quite an athlete, you know. He's an athlete. He used to play baseball. He's a great baseball player. And like I said the other day, he's a good golfer. I mean, he really has a very good, powerful golf swing at his age. If he can hit a drive 280 yards at his age, I mean, he's an athletic guy. So I think he's looking good for the next 8 years, hopefully, Tim.
Yes. 8 years, actually 7, I guess.
Yeah.
He's already used up 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so anyway, it went well, and he's in excellent health. And his approval rating is also doing well at 46%. And the stocks are climbing higher. The sales during the holiday season were the strongest in a generation.
Wow.
And also, let's check out this article about more money in our paychecks.
I guess that's why China has its highest trade surplus, because of the great Christmas season, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's...
So, we're still getting most of our products from China.
That's right. It's waiting for an article here to come up, okay? The Rasmussen Report's daily presidential tracking poll for Friday shows that 46% of likely U.S. voters approve of President Trump's job performance, 53% disapprove. So I guess, there's no, very few undecideds.
No, 1%.
We're pretty clear. The latest figures include 30% who strongly approve of the way Trump is performing and 43% who strongly disapprove. This gives him a presidential approval index rating of -13. Gallup has announced that it is ending its daily presidential tracking poll, which means Rasmussen Reports is now the only survey firm still tracking the presidential job approval on a daily basis. Regular updates are posted Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Even Democrats aren't overly confident that their legislators in Congress will be able to stop Trump's agenda. Only 10% of Democrats believe efforts by national Democrats to oppose the president have been a success so far. That's 10%. However, just 21% think it would be better for their party to try to work with the president in the future. Democrats desperate for someone with firepower to challenge Trump in 2020 have now seized on TV personality Oprah Winfrey. Oprah edges the president in a hypothetical election matchup. Generally speaking, however, just 12% of American adults think most Hollywood celebrities are good role models.
12%.
12%.
That's pretty high.
Washington is buzzing about the new anti-Trump book, Fire and Fury, but just 36% of voters believe it is an accurate portrayal of the Trump White House.
How can it be? The author said it wasn't.
Yeah. Tensions appear to be cooling between the United States and North Korea. We'll tell you what voters think at 10:30 today. Despite Attorney General Jeff Sessions' intention to get tough on the states that have legalized marijuana, most voters want to keep marijuana regulated at the state level. See, this is the states' rights. You see?
Why didn't
I think Sessions. Anyway, no matter who does it, the drug. We've been fighting this war on drugs for years and years and years, and the drugs are winning. California is the most recent state to make a recreational marijuana legal. 49% of voters now favor the legalization of recreational marijuana used in their state. So I would vote against that.
Yeah.
But I think it should be a part of states' rights. I think that is a good good place to begin to expand states' rights, to revive the 10th Amendment. Revive the 10th Amendment, because the Constitution doesn't say anything about marijuana, right?
No.
It doesn't, does it?
No, I don't think so. Not specific.
Pretty sure the Constitution doesn't say about marijuana. So that means that it is up to the states and to the citizens to make a decision, not the federal government.
The rights devolve down to the states.
That's right. Some readers wonder how we come up with our job approval ratings for the president, since they often don't show as dramatic a change as some other pollsters do. It depends on how you ask the question and whom you ask. To get a sense of longer-term job approval, Rasmussen Reports compiles our tracking data on a full month-by-month. All right, so they're explaining how they gather their data. All right. But anyway, these polls are always wrong anyway. But anyway, it's fun. It's fun to watch. Stocks end at records, book weekly gains as early earnings season kicks off. In other words, the companies whose stocks are being traded are announcing their earnings for this is probably the fourth quarter of last year, the October to December quarter. U.S. stock market indexes closed at records on Friday and booked weekly gains as investors remained optimistic over the economy and the state of American corporations as the fourth quarter earnings season began. The U.S. stock market will be closed on Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Oh, we're in a long weekend.
I guess.
The Dow Jones Industrial Index is now at 25,803.19, gained 2% over the week. S&P 500 is at 2,786.24, gaining 1.6% over the week. And the NASDAQ is at 7,261, a gain of 0.7% during the week. Fourth quarter earnings season unofficially kicked off on Friday with the results from a number of major financial institutions. A sector analyst expected to put in a mixed performance. Earnings growth is expected to be strong this quarter, although the recently passed tax law out of Washington is expected to muddy some results, according to Goldman Sachs, et cetera, et cetera. And so, so the stock market is continues to do well. Headed for 26,000 on the Dow Jones, it looks like. Strongest holiday sales since Great Recession. Wow.
That's incredible.
Strongest holiday sales since the Great Recession.
Which recession was that?
Oh, that's not okay. That's let's
in the 70s.
Yeah.
70s?
No. It's I think let's look at this.
Okay.
Holiday sales jumped 5.5% compared with last year, marking the largest jump since the end of the Great Recession. The National Retail Federation said Friday. Total sales for November and December were $691.9 billion, exceeding the industry trade group's forecast of between $678.75 billion and $682 billion, which would have been an increase of between 3.6 and 4%. So it exceeded the trade group's expectation.
So it's more than 4%.
It was more than 4%, yes.
Well, that's the target, right? You extrapolate that out to GDP.
Well, there's a lot more involved in GDP than just the holiday trade sales.
But it's an indicator, though.
It's an indicator of the overall, yes, because people are buying because they've got more money. And they've got more money because they have more jobs. They're being able to work more hours, and they expect that their taxes will be going down, so they're willing to spend more. People are willing to spend more. People actually should be saving, but anyway.
Do you want to go down that road?
No. Resisting.
I was looking around property yesterday. I mean, just in my area of Holly. There's this property for sale for like $30,000. It's a 2-bedroom place on the lake, right? It's just got a bit of mildew and it needs a bit of work. And the assessed value is $97,000 in that.
Is there insulation in the walls?
Well, I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure there's a lot of work in it. But it's got a foundation. No, it's got a foundation. I mean, so I'm saying that there's always things we can do to add value.
Yes.
Whether it's sweat equity or we're using other people's skills. And that's part of the economic prosperity that Americans are experiencing now.
Okay, just to clarify.
You reduce the regulation, right?
Yeah.
And then Americans tend to, we tend to look around and add value and do stuff. That's like the dynamism of America.
Yes. Just to clarify, the Great Recession was from 07 to 09.
Oh, right, okay.
All right, so that is that. 90% of workers are likely to see more money in their paychecks next month. The U.S. Treasury and the IRS on Thursday put out new guidance and withholding tables for employers that incorporate changes from the new tax law. Under those new tables, the Treasury estimates that 90% of people who get a paycheck are likely to see more in take-home pay as soon as February. Employers will have until February 15th to incorporate the changes in their payroll systems. But for many taxpayers, they will need to assess whether the new tables really are withholding enough money so that they're not saddled with a big bill when they file their taxes next year. The major changes affecting individuals include new tax brackets, mostly lower income tax rates, a near doubling of the standard deduction, and the elimination of both personal exemptions as well as many itemized deductions. The new tables are designed not only to best approximate the change in workers' tax liability under the new law, but to do so in a way that delivers benefits as soon as possible to as many people as possible with as little disruption as possible, a senior Treasury official told reporters. The IRS is not issuing new Forms W-4 yet. We've constructed the tables so that most people should be accurately withheld if they leave their W-4 in place, the senior IRS official noted. The plan is to have the new W-4s by 2019. Personal exemptions are a core feature of the current withholding system, but now that they are eliminated, it's necessary to build a new approach to withholding, which will take some time, the senior IRS official said. In the meantime, he urged filers who have complicated tax returns, tax solution situations, i.e. anyone who is not single, childless, and holding down just one job, anyone who is not single, not childless, and holding down just one job, to review the number of allowances they currently take on their W-4s once the IRS puts out its new withholding calculator by the end of February. Such a calculator will ask for anonymous inputs, for example, your income, number of dependents, and other pieces of information that help determine whether you might be eligible for various tax breaks. We would encourage every taxpayer to run their information through the calculator. Then they can decide what they want to do, the senior IRS official said. That's not bad advice for any year when there are big tax changes, but it's especially critical this year. Most people fill out their W-4 form when they're hired at a new job and don't change it unless they get married, have kids, get divorced, or experience other life-changing situations. And roughly 3/4 of tax filers are over-withheld because they take too few allowances, and that results in a refund when they file their tax returns. The IRS doesn't expect that to change much under the new tax law, given the preference filers have shown for getting big refunds rather than just breaking even or having to cut a new check to Uncle Sam when they file their returns. When you get a refund, it means that you've given an interest-free loan to the United States government, all right? Yeah. That's what it means. You're getting, you're over-withholding, right, and basically you are loaning money to the government, right, which they get to use interest-free. Right. And then in April, or whenever you file your taxes, you know, they give you what they call a refund. Actually, they're repaying that loan, or, after, you know, they take out your taxes. But too good to be true, Democrats are concerned the rushed withholding tables could leave many tax filers in a situation of potentially being under-withheld for tax year 2018 and therefore left owing money when they file their tax returns in early 2019. Republicans are using brute force and speed to implement a law that will deliver a financial blow to hardworking Americans all across the country, said Ron Wyden, the top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, said in a statement. Earlier this week, Wyden and Representative Richard Neal, the top Democrat on the House Tax Writing Committee, asked the Government Accountability Office to analyze the new IRS tables to see if they might lead to systematic under-withholding of federal taxes from paychecks. I have a good idea. Yeah. Let's get rid of the income tax.
That sounds like a great idea, too.
Let's get rid of property tax, and let's have sales tax as the primary means of taxation. How about that? Huh? How come no one thought of that?
It sounds a lot easier.
Sounds a lot easier. Sounds a lot easier.
Eliminate a lot of jobs. A lot of accountancy jobs, a lot of
bureaucrats. Yes. IRS. Make the government much smaller. Shoot, we may even be able to run the government with less than 10% of GDP.
Yeah, well,
who knows?
That's all we need. That's our limit, isn't it?
Yes.
With the CIG Constitution.
Yes. I look forward to GAO's independent review of these tables, which will expose whether the Trump administration is tampering with the Americans' paychecks, resulting in a whopping tax bill next year, Wyden said. The GAO has said Wyden's request must go through its usual review process before a decision to proceed is made. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin at the White House press briefing on Thursday dismissed suspicions that the administration is juicing the tables as a ridiculous charge. I guess we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll find out. All right.
Wouldn't it be nice to get an idea from the Democratic side?
No, I wouldn't.
Do they have an idea?
No. I mean,
Chuck Schumer's
listen, socialism and communism has been tried and has been proven to be false.
Right.
So We're not interested in that.
What do they have to offer?
We're not interested in that kind of thing. Yeah.
And didn't they used to be like the Democratic Party was for the working man? You know, the unions would raise the wages and allow
that was
communities
socialism,
to build. Yeah, I mean, but
they were for the working man, like the Communist Party is for the proletariat.
But I mean,
all they do is enslave the proletariat.
Well, if you go to an extreme, but don't you think that the traditional Democratic Party in the U.S. prior to the socialization of everything would just look out for the interests of the working man, like for example, working conditions.
Well, when you talk about socialization of everything, are you talking about pre-FDR?
Yeah, I'm talking about when you had bad working conditions, for example. And
that was when the Democratic Party was for the KKK.
Oh, okay, but I mean, but the idea of the Democrats, at least as I grew up, working class Irish Catholic, is that you have people working in manufacturing jobs, or whatever, and so you have a union that looks out for their interests, or at least organize them so they don't get totally taken advantage of by the capitalist machine that would just try to get the cheapest possible labor, which we've seen with the rise of China, for example, unbridled capitalism. So I'm just saying, I'm just trying to throw out a little olive branch to the Democrats. Do they have anything positive to say? Anything?
Yeah, I don't think so.
These identity politics is so boring. I mean, African Americans complaining about America. Give me a break. I remember back in Chicago when we were doing the outreach when Father was in Danbury, and we had these African American preachers. Like Earl Sardin, I remember his name, and he's this bulwark of a man with a beautiful, deep heart who walked with Martin Luther King, and who welcomed our humble brothers and sisters to work, doing a like food bank project and clothing. I mean, it's our brothers and sisters, white and Asian people who went to these S-hole countries and went to these, Chicago, these S-hole cities to serve and love. And we found so many wonderful African American pastors and Christians. And when I see these guys on Fox News and these news people like Don Lemon, I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
So don't even get me started. And if someone's going to stand up there and call me a racist because I'm white, hey man, that's like water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly speaking, what do African Americans in America have to complain about? I mean, go to Nigeria, go to Haiti. I mean, go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, if you want to complain.
And what if we want to complain? One place we can go is to Venezuela, and there riots grip Venezuela. Mob slaughters cattle in the field. This is the kind of thing that will happen when the shish kebab hits the fan.
Yeah.
Okay. Food riots grip western Venezuela. Mob reportedly slaughters cattle in the field. San Cristobal, Barinas, Venezuela. Hungry mobs ransacked a food collection center and a supermarket in Venezuela's western Andean state of Merida on Thursday, and reportedly even slaughtered cattle grazing in a field as unrest over food shortages spread through the country. An opposition lawmaker from Merida said 4 people had died and 10 were injured in the chaos over the last 2 days, but he did not specify the circumstances. 4 years of recession and the world's highest inflation have plunged millions of Venezuelans into poverty, and President Nicolas Maduro's authoritarian socialist regime faces mounting unrest. Venezuela's information ministry did not respond to a request for information about the latest disturbances to rock the nation of 30 million people. Looters plundered a truck carrying corn, a food collection center, and a state-run supermarket, according to Paparoni and a vet who witnessed the mayhem. A video on social media also showed around a dozen men running into a lush pasture, chasing a cow, and then apparently beating it to death.
Wow. Venezuela.
They're hunting. The people are hungry, says the narrator of the video, who filmed the incident from his car. Lawmaker Paparoni said some 300 animals were believed to have been killed. Reuters could not verify this information. And then another 50-year-old vet in Merida witnessed the looting of a truck along the highway around 2 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. About 2 hours later, he said some 800 people converged on a food collection center and proceeded to plunder it. They knocked down the gates and looted flour, rice, cooking oil, cooking gas, said Urdaneta. The police and the National Guard tried to control the situation by giving out what was left. Looting has been increasing in the provinces since Christmas, with food shortages and hyperinflation, leaving millions of people hungry, though the capital Caracas has so far been largely unaffected. The opposition says Maduro's failed economic policies and rampant corruption are to blame for the meltdown in the once booming country, home to the world's largest crude oil reserves.
Hard to believe.
They have more oil reserves than Saudi Arabia, but apparently it's more expensive to pull it out of the ground.
Is it?
In other words, it's harder to get it out of the ground than the oil in Saudi Arabia, and so that's also true. What we're living is barbaric, said opposition lawmaker Juan in his tweet referencing the slaughter of the cattle. The dehumanizing regime of Nicolas Maduro is turning a blind eye to the tragedy that we Venezuelans are living. Dehumanizing is right. Maduro's government accuses political opponents and business-friendly foreign powers of trying to foment a social uprising against him by stoking inflation and hoarding food. And what they said was, in an attempt to combat speculation, authorities last week forced over 200 supermarkets to slash prices. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Forced
so they're gonna,
to slash the prices.
So they're actually going to lose money.
Exactly. Creating chaos as desperate Venezuelans leapt at the chance to buy cheaper food. Some supermarkets were sold out of fruit and vegetables, and staff were unsure if the shelves would be replenished. Well, not if they're going to lose money. No, if you have to buy it for $10 from the wholesaler and sell it for $5, you're not going to sell it. Yes. I remember in the 70s, Nixon tried price controls.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Price controls by Nixon, a Republican president, right? That didn't work out very well either.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So things are going from bad to worse to even worse, worser and worser and worsest in Venezuela. I don't know how bad it can get. I mean, at some point, the people of Venezuela just have to go someplace and get guns. I don't know, police stations, or I'm sure there are guns somewhere in Venezuela at the military bases or whatever, and just rise up against their government.
Well, it's interesting in relation to this on the Freedom Society meeting on Thursday night. There was a video on Pinochet in Chile. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
It was an interview with Stefan Molyneux and this Axel Kaiser. He's a Chilean, quite intelligent guy. But he was talking about Pinochet and Allende, who was a hardcore Marxist, the first apparently elected Marxist in Chile.
Chile? Or Allende was in Argentina?
No, it was Chile. Chilean, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
But Pinochet was a military. It was a military coup, a junta of 4 military leaders who identified the cells. He identified the communist cells ahead of time and sent out death squads to take these guys out, a certain limited number. And then on the heels of that, he established a government that wrote a written constitution in 1980 and turned Chile around. He actually destroyed the communist power in Chile by taking preemptive action against these groups in a limited way. So the limited amount of deaths, 2,000 or something like that. And of course, there were some overages and some bad things done and people disappearing, that kind of thing. But relatively speaking, he was able to get control of the country and turn it around to allow economic prosperity. And then Kukchinen was making the analogy with President Park in South Korea. So similar type of situation. But in Venezuela, it seems that the military, it was a military coup, but it's like a socialist military coup or a totally corrupt military coup. So these guys, they have no honor or no plan or no desire to establish any kind of stable government. Because that's the idea of a military coup, isn't it? That the military takes over to stabilize the situation so that the economy can start to grow. But I don't really understand what the deal is with Venezuela, Maduro. Is he is from the military, is he not? And also Hugo Chavez was a military coup that took over Venezuela.
Well, you have an elite in Venezuela that's actually not doing badly at all.
Still?
Yeah, still, the elite, yeah. And as this article pointed out, people in Caracas, the capital city, are not doing as badly as people in the countryside.
Right.
But people in the countryside are in really terrible shape.
Yeah.
At
some point, story.
At some point, sometime, things will continue to get worse, I'm sure, until the people of Venezuela stand up. I don't know if will it become a failed state like Afghanistan, and will it become a sort of the hotbed of terrorism, from where terrorists ISIS, for example, goes in there and is able to establish a base and is able to attack the United States from there? I think that's the concern of some national security experts.
Yeah,
and so that is then the argument, and that is sort of the justification in that they put forward for the United States going in there with military.
Yeah,
which is a bad idea.
Right, but then on the other hand, though,
of course, the United States has history of military intervention in Latin America, and this is certainly not the time for that. I'm pretty confident in saying that that's not going to be helpful to God's will.
The Brazilian police, when I was in Brazil last year, I had a conversation with a federal police officer about Venezuela, and he was expressing concern about radical Islam coming into Brazil, saying that already there are pockets of colonies within Brazil because they're basically a foreign occupying power. They colonize an area and create Sharia law. And Venezuela has a border with Brazil, so if Venezuela is very unstable like that, like you said, that could be used as a means of entering into Brazil.
Yeah.
So, at what point does the U.S.
Brazil then should close their border.
Yeah.
Build a wall.
It's expensive to build a wall. Man,
dig a ditch or whatever.
And Venezuela should pay for that wall.
It should pay for the wall. Build a wall, dig a ditch, whatever it takes.
By the way, is Mexico going to pay for the wall?
Yeah. We'll have to call up the White House on that.
$18 billion now to build this wall, apparently. So it's all very murky about the wall now. What's going on with the wall?
Well, he says he still wants it. He says he still wants it. All right. Looking at some of the headlines here on Fox, Kentucky to make Medicaid recipients spend 80 hours a month earning care. That's Medicaid recipients. So there's Medicare and Medicaid, and Medicare is what people like us have been paying into all of our lives. A certain portion of our paycheck is deducted and it goes into Medicare. And when you get to be a certain age or something like that, you can apply and receive insurance through Medicare. I think it's when you're 65 or something like that. And Medicaid is a welfare program, so it's important not to confuse the two. Now, Kentucky received the green light Friday to require many of its Medicaid recipients to work in order to receive coverage. The bluegrass state thus becomes the first state to act on Trump administration's unprecedented change that could affect millions of low-income people receiving benefits. Under the new rule, adults age 19 to 64 must complete 80 hours of community engagement, in quotes, per month to keep their care. That includes working a job, going to school, taking a job training course, or volunteering. There is dignity associated with earning the value of something that you receive, Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin said. The vast majority of men and women, able-bodied men and women, they want the dignity associated with being able to earn and have engagement.
True.
Kentuckians also will be required to pay up to $15 a month for their insurance, with basic dental and vision being eliminated entirely. However, those benefits can be earned back through a rewards program, such as getting an annual physical, completing a diabetes or weight management course, or participating in an anti-smoking program. The change was approved Friday by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The Trump administration announced Thursday it would allow for states to impose working requirements for people receiving Medicaid. Bevin, a Republican, said the decision stemmed from concern about public health. Despite the fact that more Kentuckians have insurance, they're not becoming any healthier, he said. The state, along with the rest of Appalachia, falls behind the rest of the U.S. in 33 out of 41 population health indicators, according to a recent study. Bevin believes the new work requirement will help change these statistics. Bevin's office also stated in its proposal to Washington that the move will save taxpayers more than $300 million over the next 5 years, and estimated that up to 95,000 people could lose their benefits because they either don't comply with the new rule or they obtained jobs that pay too much money and push them out of the low-income bracket. Well, that's good, actually, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you would think so.
However, there are some exemptions to work requirements that will be enforced starting in July and remain in effect for 5 years. Pregnant women, full-time students, former foster care youth, primary caregivers of children, and the elderly and full-time students will not be effective. What's wrong with former foster care youth? They can work.
Yeah.
People deemed medically frail, a broad term that encompasses people who are battling drug and alcohol addiction, will also be exempt.
Okay.
There you go.
There's going to be a lot of exemptions. There's going to be a lot of medical frailty in that program. I'm medically frail, Tim. I can't make it.
Critics of the new plan said the changes could lead to many low-income families being denied needed coverage because of technicalities and challenging new paperwork. Challenging paperwork, it gets you every time.
Paperwork's terrible. Let's face it, the older you get, the worse the paperwork is.
Yeah, that's true. Democratic U.S. Rep. John Yarmouth, who represents Louisville, calling it a dangerous and irresponsible decision that will lead to the financial ruin of thousands of families that reside in Kentucky. How dare you make people work?
Hey, is he a Democrat?
Of course he is. I mean, I hope he's a
Democrat. An idea. Give me an idea, Chuck. Come on, Chuck. You're a very intelligent man. Chuck Schumer, give me an idea.
Medicaid covers more than 70 million people, or about 1 in 5 Americans. Currently, the largest government health insurance program does not require people to have a job or be employed to receive the benefits. How dare President Trump make people work?
Well, they can go to school, or they can do volunteer work.
Yes, they can go to school, they can do volunteer work.
They can do coaching, and they can go to a local care home.
That's right,
and serve tea to older people. There's a lot of stuff that can be done on the community level. So that's again, Trump is showing.
But this is part of making America great again.
That's right. Trump's showing who Trump is. This is the character of a man.
People off the
character of a man who thinks about others, who wants the benefit of the whole country, who's trying to lift everyone up, create opportunity for everyone. Oh man.
We can get our daily dose of Korean news here.
Okay.
North Korea hopes to send art troupe to Olympics, South says.
Art troupe?
Yes.
Okay.
See what's going on there. North Korea next week wants to discuss sending an art troupe to the next month's Winter Olympics in South Korea. South Korean officials said Saturday Pyongyang hopes to discuss sending athletes to the game at a subsequent meeting. Seoul's Unification Ministry said officials from the rival Koreas met earlier this week in the border village of Panmunjom. Their first talks in more than 2 years. At that meeting, they agreed to hold military talks and send a North Korean delegation of officials, athletes, cheerleaders, journalists, and others to the Olympics. The Unification Ministry said North Korea wanted to send a delegation headed by the director of the Arts and Performance Bureau of the North's Cultural Ministry to Monday's talks. A conductor and 2 other officials from a North Korean orchestra would also be part of the delegation, the ministry said. Separately, the International Olympic Committee has proposed a meeting January 20th at the IOC headquarters in Lausanne, Switzerland, involving the rival Koreas to discuss North Korea's participation at the Games to be held in Pyeongchang, South Korea, February 9 to 25. So they're getting close. Yeah. In an effort to include North Korea in this year's Olympics, the IOC has extended the deadline for registering for the Games, Reuters reported. An IOC spokesman said the IOC will, at very short notice, continue its talks with all parties concerned so that we can take the necessary decisions about participation and the format of any participation in due time. So, of course, the concern is that, you want to keep the North Koreans satisfied so they don't bomb them. don't bomb the games. I mean, that's
hopefully not.
Yeah, if they get, if you say no, you can't come, and they say, okay, we're going to bomb the place, then that would be pretty bad.
That would be, yeah.
Yes.
So they're deciding whether or not to let North Korea come. Is that the idea?
Well, I think they've already decided to let them come. I think that's not an issue. Not mentioned here, but I read I think in the South Korean press that North Korea wants to send a delegation of 400 people.
That's a big delegation.
That's a big delegation.
But
most of those people will not be athletes.
They're spies, basically.
Basically, well, yeah. Planning the takeover of the South.
Maybe they're just coming over to get a bit of medication for their tapeworms.
That could be. Although the U.S. is saying that no support can be given because of the economic sanctions against North Korea.
Okay.
No support can be given to North Koreans, not even a single hockey stick.
So how are they going to play hockey?
Well, they're going to bring their own sticks.
So how do they get hockey manufacturing facilities in North Korea?
I think
it is a cold country. You would think that'd be like Canada. They have, the NHL of North Korea.
Yeah, maybe so. All right, this may be our final story today. 20-year-old jackpot winner hopes to do good for humanity.
Okay.
Don't we all? When we were 20 years old.
Wow.
No, 20 years old.
20 years old.
Yes, and I think he won 400 and something.
Okay.
Million.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. He took the one-time payout, which is only 282 million. You usually get about half.
Okay.
Yeah. So
he's got
the headline figure was 451 million.
Okay.
That was the annuity figure.
Okay.
And he chose the 282 million one-time payout.
Okay.
That was his first wise decision.
Okay.
A Florida lottery news released Friday said 20-year-old Shane Missler of Port Richey had claimed the jackpot from the multi-state games January 5 drawing. They said he chose to receive his winnings in a one-time lump sum payment of $281,574,999. I'm only 20, but I hope to use it to pursue a variety of passions, help my family, and do some good for humanity.
What a good kid, huh?
He said in a statement. But these guys usually go broke within 5 years. It's tremendously difficult to manage this money, apparently. Some guys do well, but there are I think there are a lot more tragedy stories than there are happy ending stories.
It's
yes,
quite a heavy thing, really, to have that kind of thing happen to you.
Yeah.
I imagine you have to consider your own private security and
right. Yeah.
Whole life changes. You have to go underground. A lot of the stuff you do.
Right, and all of a sudden you realize you have a lot more relatives than you ever.
Yeah. Uncle Joe. Where you live, Uncle Joe? In California. I thought you guys seceded. Isn't there a wall over there?
We wish this young man all the best in his efforts to do good for humanity. I believe him. I believe that he really does have that intention. But the question is whether he can actualize that intention.
Well, if he has a good financial advisor, just put most of that in trust and forget about it. It'll be all right.
We could go there, but
okay.
Yeah, I think buy land, buy gold. That would be my advice to him.
Okay.
Yes, and donate to your nearest Christian church.
There's plenty of great land available here in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. I would not keep it as cash. I would not keep it in stocks or bonds or anything else. Land is always going to be worth something.
Yeah, sure.
And you can always grow stuff on land.
That's what Father said. It was Father's economic plan for us.
Oh, yeah?
Go to Brazil, get land, work 3 days a week, and spend the rest of the time with your family.
Good.
Go fishing, go hunting, grow, take care of everyone.
There you go.
Live a happy life.
I hope he's listening. All right. Young man in Florida, best of luck to you. And thank you, everyone else, for tuning in this morning. And I noticed that the ground has turned white outside.
It has, yeah.
Yes, we have gone from autumn to winter in the space of 3 hours. And we're going down deep into the single digits during the next couple of nights.
Down deep.
Yes, we're going down.
into the deep.
Meanwhile, we have the worst flu season in 13 years, so let's be careful about that. All of the continental United States is experiencing flu outbreaks, That leaves out Hawaii, right? So maybe we should all go to Hawaii. All right. Thank you. Let's get out of here. God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come.
Amen. Aju.